Into it, let's take a look at our schedule for today. Okay, we have a lot of games to show off during day one. We start off with some strong Souls-likes, Lies of P, into everyone's favorite heavy hitter, Elden Ring. We then finish the rest of the day with some spooky vibes, just in time for October. Dino Crisis 2 into Resident Evil 1, and then hopefully unlock our first incentive run of the weekend, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Now remember, chat, incentive runs will require hitting a donation milestone, which will be announced during Dino Crisis 2 today, so stay tuned to find out our goal. Now let's move over to our first hitless run of the weekend, Lies of P.
Lies of P will be run by morethna. Welcome, morethna.
Hi, everyone. As already mentioned, my name is morethna, and I've been part of the Team Hitless community for more than 2 years now. And I'm pretty happy to show you my Lies of P, no leveling, aka EL10, no it run today.
Awesome. And I heard that you have some commentators that you brought along. Blueberrybrioche and banjotheuncle. Welcome. Bree, do you want to say a few words to GDQ today?
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm Bree, and I'm so excited to be here to commentate alongside Banjo for morethna's incredible, no leveling, by the way, hitless and very speedy run. I personally have been a part of Team Hitless for many years, and I have gotten the amazing opportunity to watch the Lies of P hitless run evolve from what initially was about a 4-hour run to just over 2-hour run, which is what we're going to see today.
Awesome.
And really quick, before we get into it, oh, there goes my voice already. I mentioned the charity button, and you all clicked that immediately. So I want to thank Unobeat and Themian TV and Barryon23 for your donations. Keep them coming. Thank you all so much for hopping on that immediately.
Chat, we haven't even started gameplay yet. What are you doing? No, seriously, thank you so much. Unbelievable. But I will introduce our second commentator, chat. Hold your donations for 30 seconds, I promise, okay?
No, don't.
Banjo the Uncle. Welcome in. Do you want to say a few words to GDQ?
Sure, I'll be really quick. Hello, everyone. I'm Banjo. I'm honored to be here today to commentate alongside Bree and look over morethna's run. It's going to be an amazing event. I'm super excited, and let's see some hitless dominance. Let's go.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. We're going to do a countdown. morethna, if you're ready. 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh my gosh, the very beginning of this game, we get the beautiful train station.
I was going to say, I'm so excited.
So normally, we're actually going to see a speedy strat right off the bat. This is a very slow walk section where obviously the game is trying to force you into immersion. And what you're seeing here is morethna using his arm, and it's punching him forward, and this is saving him a couple seconds. With the addition of the, how do I say this, Azure Dragon Crescent Glaive, which is, thank you, I've been working on that. With the addition of that weapon, he can actually equip that right away. And so that enhances the speed here as well. So we are already seeing speed and some time save right in the beginning.
Yep, and that's pretty much the name of the game here. morethna is very quick, and the run itself is very quick. And you'll see a lot of interesting little finer nuances and ideas, as well as just execution that's going to carry him forward throughout the rest of this run. And as you said, the Krot Central Station is where we begin the fun. And in terms of hitless stuff, we're actually going to see something pretty typical, which is we don't like to fight too many enemies along the way if we don't have to. The fewer things we have to encounter and deal with, the better, if only for safety and consistency, because it's part of the game. We don't want to get hit.
Exactly. Avoiding fights typically is better unless those fights give us something useful, which we will see a few mini bosses coming up that we do choose to fight, even though they're a bit scary. But they do enhance our character with certain amulets, certain upgrade materials, for instance, and sometimes we have to choose to fight those battles.
Yeah, we're going to see so many techniques and mechanics as well. We're already looking at things like, we have stamina management, we have backstabs, we have the time, certain time frame. There's all kinds of, there's going to be so much happening. Oh my goodness gracious.
Look at this. The door perfectly opens while these two policemen are running down the stairs. That is perfectly timed every time.
Yep.
It just works out really nice.
Speaking of first elite scripted potential kill, very nice. There's a lot of these, as you said, mini or elite enemies in between that have key items or specific upgrades that we look to pick up along the way. And morethna expertly takes down the first one. We're going to see many, many more of these interstitial fights as we go along too.
Yes, and that was no problem. That particular enemy does allow us to progress. That is the game's first, we'll say, challenge, where you have to embrace the game and you can't run past anything. So that allowed us to open this door. Yeah. Yes, we have to fight enemies? What is this?
Oh my goodness gracious. Out we go.
To just elaborate a little bit on the starting class, to my knowledge, at least from what I've seen from morethna in the past, he would have chosen the dexterity class, or Path of the Bastard, I believe is what it's actually called. But they call it dexterity class, but then dexterity in the game is actually called technique, which is, there's just so many
motivity, advance.
Yes.
Yeah. We typically rely on the Souls nomenclature, you know, RTSR, you know, that kind of stuff. You'll hear a lot of that we'll just kind of throw in there by accident or otherwise.
Yeah, I need to just make sure that I say Stargazer and not Bonfire or Grace or Lamp. Or
and speaking of, morethna picks up the Thermite, an item that we're going to be looking at a bit later on in the game. There's very few consumables early on, but they're highly important for certain encounters and boss fights in particular. In particular, a very nasty fellow way down the line. We'll see that, I'm sure, soon enough. Given the speed, we're like 5 minutes in, we're already at the first boss.
Yes, and morethna is selling pretty much all of the defense parts on his character, because it turns out if you don't get hit, you don't really need defense. So he sold a bunch of parts in order to obtain a few consumable items. As Banjo was mentioning, there are a couple of throwable items that are really useful, do amazing damage in this run. But there's also some consumable items that allow morethna to have Fable, which allows him to execute some pretty damaging attacks.
Super important. And we already have our first fight, the Parade Master. He's laughing, but we're going to be laughing as well. Nice
this
counter.
Damage.
Yeah, it's already insane. You're going to see some... I guess we should explain, because I know that you know this weapon very well, Bree, if you want to explain how the Fable art happens to work here.
Sure. I don't know if I know it very well. I actually just did my first playthrough with it this past week. But it's very fun. So the way that it works in Lies of P, there is a direct deflect mechanic. And first off, GG, excellently played. There was a phase skip there, so we didn't even get to see the Parade Master do this like slam with this cage that he has. He just skipped that altogether. That was an incredibly fast and perfectly executed script. But with this weapon, it actually has its own built-in deflection. So instead of you pressing the normal deflect button, you press the Fable art button, which is Y, and that will function as like a replacement deflect, where it actually sends your character backwards. And interestingly enough, you can actually parry from any direction in this game. So if you want, you can parry backwards and it would send your character towards the enemy that you just parried, for instance, which morethna does actually use in his run. But what this allows your character to do is execute a very powerful follow-up. If you do perfect parry, which we will see a ton of from morethna, you can actually follow that up with an R1, and it doesn't use any of those blue bars that we're going to see below the health bar. That's our Fable. That is very important for numerous reasons, both for consumption of power, and there's also items that enhances damage based off of the number of blue bars that we have filled. So there's kind of a multi-fold benefit as to why we want to conserve that Fable and execute those parries perfectly.
And we're going to see that blue bar be an important aspect of the run here, as we'll return back to that, because morethna's already gone. I was gonna say he's not leveling. He needs some Fable. We don't have time for the hotel, Sophia, Paul and Dean. No, we don't care. It's not important. It's not important. We go to Elysian Boulevard. We'll get back to some of the Fable stuff too, because Bree is absolutely on the money. There is really important pieces to the puzzle here that take place as part of the weapon itself, as part of the Fable usage, the amulets that you have to wear for specific purposes. But early on here, we don't have too much available to us, besides a couple of weapons and a couple of throwables. And in Elysian Boulevard, we're going to be making our way through the first, I guess maybe the second major running section, but the first that really begins the game in its entirety.
Yes, exactly. And one thing I do want to mention, I did say that it doesn't consume Fable if you do the R1 follow-up, but one thing you do pay in mind is that the R2 does consume Fable. But of course, it's a heavier attack, so it does a lot more damage. It's very worth losing that Fable for.
Yeah.
So he kills this dog here,
Yes,
and I like
take
this
care
choice.
of this dog.
Yes, this basically it follows in a true Souls-like fashion. The dogs are menaces. Okay, that's every Souls game. If you want to be called a Souls-like, you need a bad dog enemy, so to speak. And that dog can follow you to that ladder and hit you, and then it causes a little bit of upset.
Oh, that part's so terrifying every time. Every time I run past that guy. Oh my god, my heart! I hate that.
I
hate that so
actually
much.
don't even know if he can hit you with
I
any
don't
of
think
his
he can,
attacks.
but it's so scary. And you're gonna see this so often here. Like this running section, you guys are gonna see right now looks absolutely terrifying.
Yes,
because
there's a
you're just
lot
gonna
of-
be running past throwables and enemies. It's so terrifying every time. Past this guy, past
The
this
pipe
dude.
cleaner guys.
Oh my, yeah, they're so funny. The chimney dudes. Oh,
Yes.
jeez, Louise.
Yeah.
Oh
They,
my Lord in heaven. Oh, it's so.
I don't know what you did for your run, for your hitless run, but I did run past all of these enemies, but I can 100% guarantee that I had the same, everything that Banjo is vocalizing for us is what you feel like when you do this section.
I had to run past them too because I was like, I just had to suck it up. I had to be like, just go, just don't even think, just go. It's gonna work. Everything's gonna be fine. Oftentimes, that's what it comes down to. The community rallies around certain ideas and strats and sharing knowledge. And so I picked up a lot from morethna and Bree as part of their runs and some of their videos as well for guidance. And so it's been really interesting to see all this play out, including all these running sections and these bosses. And these running sections are important. We always think like the bosses matter the most, which maybe on some level they do when it comes to Hitless. But you got to get through the whole game too. It's not just a boss rush. You got to manage everything along the way. It's hyper important.
I think you actually highlight one of the most important pieces that I like to talk about with Liza P. Hitless whenever people ask my opinion on it for the difficulty, etc. The running sections in this game are impressively difficult. There's numerous enemies that can hit you. There's like constant cycles that you need to be mindful of. It's probably, I would say, of equal value to the boss fights, where some other hitless runs don't necessarily have as great of a weight on the running sections themselves.
Where's my torrent? Can I have? Or can I just
You'll see that with Elden Ring. I suppose it might just be a different part of Elden Ring than we're used to, but with Elden Ring Hitless, for instance, in comparison, the beginning of Elden Ring Hitless is a lot of setup. To start out, it's usually about an hour of just getting your character set. This run, with this game being a bit more linear than Elden Ring, it's all flowing and happening all at once. So we're already seeing our second boss fight, mini boss coming up, and it just kind of flows, if that makes sense.
This darn donkey.
This strat, though, wait, have you seen this strat?
I have, and y'all are about to, don't blink, all right? If you're gonna, don't you dare blink, not just for the whole run, but specifically for this fight, all right? Here we go.
Start with backstab. We love those backstabs.
So juicy. Nice damage, charged attack, puppet string, which we didn't even talk about yet. We'll have to, okay. Hold on. Donkey cooperating.
morethna is fixing it.
Okay.
If he would have had one more hit, I believe he would have had the stagger on Donkey, but sometimes NPCs do not want to behave. I don't want to jinx, I hate caster cursing, but morethna has a lot of experience with this boss.
Tons.
So even though his quote-unquote fast strat didn't work, he should be able to correct this. You just need to be patient. Donkey is definitely a boss you need to be patient with.
Yeah, and as we're seeing here too, what's really important about certain backstabs, oh Lord in heaven, when it comes to these strats as well. Good job, morethna. Well done, dude. Well done. That's very
recovery.
difficult to correct because Donkey is not, again, none of these are ever gimmies, and especially these quote-unquote NPC boss fights that end up being extremely nefarious with how they operate, with how they sort of attack, and their seemingly infinite stamina, and so on and so forth. And in particular with that fight, we kind of see a major element, which is the backstabs. Backstabs and riposte in this game are rather particular versus stuff like Souls sometimes, where you can kind of get it, kind of, not no matter where you stand, but in this game, they're pretty precise. So backstabs and
very precise. Yes.
It's extremely important, and morethna handled that perfectly. Again, a dog, taking this dog down is actually really important because he can follow you to the ends of the earth.
a few things to point out. I just want to clarify a couple items that you're probably seeing morethna pick up and maybe you haven't played Lies of P for. So the items that are called hidden moonstones, those are upgrade materials. There are two types of upgrade materials in this game. It kind of follows a similar path to Souls, where there's like a boss type weapon and then like standard weapons. Ooh, a little scary in this corner here.
It's always terrifying every time. Every time.
Always. And so he's just been picking those up along the way. He also got the Puppet Murderer's Amulet, and that is an amulet. It's basically like a ring, if you want to think of it that way, or whatever. Any type of equipable item that it actually increases 10% damage dealt to puppets.
Really important for this fight because look who we're fighting. The Scrapped Watch. That's one of my favorite fights in the game, actually.
I love him. I love him.
Yeah, he's sick. He's got so many incredible moves and combos. You guys are going to see some interesting ideas from morethna. Again, using that deflect counter to do extra damage. Delay. Oh, it's so good. The parry after parry. He doesn't even care. The domination. We should mention that you see the white bar hanging out around the health bar indicates that a stagger opportunity is possible after either a Fable attack or a charge R2.
Yep, he chooses to wait a little bit. You can kind of push that stagger window quite a long time. There's also enhancements that you'll see his character take over as we go on. That stagger window is further enhanced, and so you kind of can just keep dealing damage, and then at the very end, provoke that stagger. Nice parries.
And speaking of the parries there, that's another important element of this game. You guys will see that sometimes the bosses turn very, very red. That's known as a Fury attack. You cannot dodge Fury attacks, caveat, until later on. But in the case of early game, you must parry them if you're close. You cannot dodge them. It's really important to do so. And Hitless run.
That was a beautiful
GG.
Watchman fight.
Extremely well done.
So quick, so well executed. Sadly, I will say we didn't see too many of his like jump slam lightning attacks.
They're so cool.
I only wanted to see them because morethna parries them, which is incredible. Like you can dodge through them, which is my personal preference. But if you understanding the timing, both a visual and just the timing of the attack itself, he parries it, which just looks so amazing.
And we should probably explain that too. I think that's a good segue into the idea around Hitless for this game. In particular, Hitless is designed around dodging many attacks, and that also includes parrying. Parrying is always allowed, both in the Souls games, or even Sekiro, and of course now Lies of P. So parrying or dodging is allowed as part of avoiding hits, but guarding or any other like normal, damaging hits that you take are not allowed.
Yes. Yep. So for this game, it's very interesting because the parry frames are pretty tight. Like it's not as forgiving as some of the parry frames in other Souls games, like Sekiro, for instance. So I promise you that morethna is making it look pretty easy and effortless, but it is certainly not. This comes with hours and hours of expertise and practice and understanding timings, and not just timings, but also your position relative to the boss. That's pretty important, especially with this weapon, because it does send your character backwards when you're using that parry. So being able to optimally execute a parry, but also actually get that counter attack off, it requires practice, and he is just quite masterful with this weapon.
And the optimization is important too, because throughout the hotel here, we touched on some of the ideas when it comes to not leveling, but we are utilizing things like the P organ that he went to, which is synergizing and providing a bunch of different abilities, which is really important. He's getting his Fable back. We'll discuss that too. He's upgrading his weapon. That's all happening, again, very quickly, because morethna is a speedy individual. He's making it look so easy, as Bree mentioned earlier.
To my knowledge, he would have enhanced the stagger amount that you generate from charge attacks. So that's your R2 attack. He would have enhanced that. He also would have upgraded the lowers how much stamina is consumed by those charge attacks. So two kind of really synergistic, hard-hitting things there. He usually historically also enhances his Fable arts attack. So again, that's going back to that parry into the counter attack. That's increasing how much damage is being dealt by that. And then he also typically chooses, I didn't catch it because again, he's so speedy. He knows exactly what he wants and he just goes for it. But he typically also increases the throwing objects, so the amount of throwables that he can carry at once, which you will see come into play for numerous bosses, and I love it because there's a few nasty bosses that he just like skips things entirely, and I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, the consumables in this game are extremely strong. We picked up a key from a character known as Arlecchino. We have to solve certain riddles. We're going to use that key much later on in a certain house of sorts, if you will. We're actually also taking advantage of another major element of the game. We're not using the glaive right now. We're actually utilizing the electric coil.
Yes.
Because it turns out there's a lot of different enemy types, or at least 3 major ones, which are going to be including puppets, sort of zombies or decay-like corpses, as well as humans. And each of those have particular status or damage types that they're weakest against. And so in the case of this area, puppet-centric, we're going to go with electric. Oh, there's my God.
Oh, he got the little glitch there. Yep.
I've never seen that.
I have definitely lost runs there, and
Really?
I'm so happy that he got out of
Holy.
it. There are some like rather finicky collision boxes in this game.
Oh my goodness.
and that is one of them.
What's a Souls like without a little bit of jank here and there, you know?
Exactly.
It's like it's as close as you can get, honestly.
Have we talked about the wall clinks? Because this
A
game has
DS2
the most...
classic. Oh
Yes.
my goodness gracious. Yeah, if you're near a wall or anything that can potentially thwart your forward momentum, you best believe you're going to smack right into it, and it's going to be a bad time. Now, again, typically on like a sort of casual or normal run, you know, kind of messing up here and there is fine. In the context of a hitless run, the idea is to be, you know, quote unquote perfect. So when you're trying to run through an area or you're trying to deal with an enemy or a boss or whatnot, and you're hitting a wall, chances are you don't mean to do that. But in the context of these games, sometimes accidents happen or things go on like that really weird, bad collision, and morethna handle it perfectly again.
Right.
And I
This
think-
commentary has been absolutely phenomenal so far. I have to interrupt very briefly because
Sure.
I would like to announce our first incentive. morethna will perform all Ergo bosses at $750 raised. Deadeyeee, would you mind explaining a little bit more about what that means and when that needs to be met by?
Sure. So I will say this, that the All Ergo bosses features a bonus boss, chat. A bonus boss that we will see if we can raise $750. And we basically have a little over an hour and a half, even more before that. Basically, we have 2 hours, chat. So we have plenty of time. But if you want to see an extra boss, an optional boss at the end of the run, get those donos in. I'm
Right.
super excited. I have a lot of faith in all of you, chat, that we can hit that.
I
So
do too,
$750.
because there are so many donations that have already come in just during these first 20 minutes of this run alone. Local ATV, Jay the Helmet, Highly Incompetent, Mr. Proper, the Gamer Family Dad, DJ Carmichael, Yokai Fan 123, Ryan from Canada, and Nostradamus. I ran through all of those as quickly as I could. Thank you all so much for your donations. Keep them coming. Let's hit 750 for that incentive.
Wonderful. I was having like anxiousness over here watching this fight. He was just getting really unlucky with some of his RNG.
I want to make a pun about the future and the donations, but I was
Oh,
mesmerized
do it.
by the puppet, by morethna taking down the puppet of the future. It was just no problems. Typically, you're supposed to remove that poison pool, but it's just like, again, and Deadeyeee mentioned it at the start of the stream. We don't worry about environmental damage. Environmental damage is perfectly fine when it comes to Hitless. It's sort of a caveat to the rules to make things a bit more interesting or malleable in how you approach certain encounters. And because we can just survive the poison pool and take down the pup of the future, we do so. We do that because he provides an important material known as quartz for that P organ that we touched on back at the hotel.
100%. And yeah, we were seeing the power of the electrical damage that Banjo was hitting on the damage types in this game. And getting to use the coil on that puppet of the future helps to really quicken the fight. I typically in my runs would choose to come back to that boss much later in the run, just prior to a boss that we'll see probably about 15-20 minutes from now. But as you can see, morethna does it early, which also helps to reduce the number of warps he has to do. It really expedites the process. So seeing that early is always very fun.
And that's actually a really good point, because I believe typically morethna would do, I won't spoil it, the next boss almost immediately. But because we're in, as a reminder, this is no leveling. We want to try to maximize our damage and maximize our potential as much as possible, as early on as possible. Because when you can level up and do these other things, typically you have a lot more damage. But already, not that we're seeing the effects necessarily, but we're technically already weaker than we would otherwise like to be at this point in the game. And so by leveraging these types of upgrades and whatnot, including another one here with the key. I got my keys mixed up. He actually uses the key now rather than at a certain house later because of the lack of leveling. So we're going to see probably another quartz pickup here.
Yep. 100% we'll get this quartz. To my knowledge, he'll probably head back and he'll upgrade that electric coil one more time prior to going into Fuoco. Fuoco, I believe is how we say it. I say Fuecoco like the Pokemon because it's just like I see that combination and I have to say Fuecoco. But I think it's Fuoco is how you typically
say it. As a Pokemon fan, I approve.
I was going to say, there are a lot of people who like Fuecoco, so that's probably... I'm sure that'll at least be a hit with chat.
I won't be alone. So yeah, he'll use those quartz upgrades and then he'll upgrade his weapon one more time and we get to see a really, really cool boss fight from morethna coming up.
I'm going to catch it really quick. I'm going to see it. Enhances weapon attack when discharge 1. Really important. And... thank you, morethna. The first time he went slow for us. Thank you. I got to see what he was picking
consumption, I believe, is the other one. I wrote it down as I was doing some review and stuff because
smart.
I sometimes I'm just not catching it, and we get distracted. We're human, so I wrote some of these things down. Now, if he does things out of order and throws me off, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with him after.
and the P organs are the P organ itself was really important. And you mentioned the non-consumption when dashing. We get to dash more often. I mean, we have more stamina. The synergies are really important. We haven't really touched on those necessarily yet, but we have we actually have an extra fable bar at our disposal at this point in time too, which is really important. We're gonna see that utilized alongside a particular amulet that's gonna give us more damage. More on that later. The synergies themselves. Also, I think we also picked up the link dodge, which I think originally was pushed later into the P organ, but due to the overall difficulty of this game, it was too hard. They patched it, and then they made the link dodge a bit earlier to let us mortals have a bit more fun with this game in general.
Us souls enjoyers do our dodging. They're like, you're not embracing our parry system, I suppose. Have another dodge, you casuals. That's basically what they said.
Thank you. And speaking of dodging, some interesting ideas about to go on with.
I love this boss fight.
With Mr. Fuoco, King's Flame.
So he has a pretty nasty phase 2. So as hopefully we'll see, morethna is going to try pretty hard. That's really mean.
Yep, close.
That's very mean. There is an active hitbox on that. So well done.
Nice dodge. Nice
Some
dodge.
really mean attacks from Fuoco.
He's going to go for the triple. He charges it up. Dodge on the last. Charge R2. He's setting up a stagger to prevent the inclusion of that phase 2, because phase 2 is very dangerous. A Fable Art attack. Charge R2. Charge R2. Stagger. Popping I believe, the Catalyst to get more Fable.
Exactly.
Now, do we have the damage?
And then we Weapon Art. And
Okay, he's going to have to let him phase transition, maybe. He's going to go for... what is this? Oh, okay. I was going to say, good.
He is just so good with knowing his timing there, because that fire that we just saw spread across the entire boss room does damage you. That was very well played by morethna.
Extremely well done.
That's just one of those moments where you can see his experience really come through. He understands when that fire attack is going to spread across the floor, and you have to hide behind those pillars. So as you saw, Fuoco actually destroys some of the pillars, so you have to be very positionally aware in the boss room where you have to run to. That was so well done.
Yeah, I was totally ready for like some kind of crazy tactic where you just stand behind him, because sometimes
I really did
souls
too.
I was like, oh, there's a secret hiding spot behind his back where there's the...
I would be surprised. Morethna is an expert, so...
He's extremely knowledgeable, yeah.
I did expect it a little bit myself, but that was very well done. Sometimes bosses decide to not cooperate in the way that we would like them to. You may have noticed on their health bar, they actually have the propensity to regen health, just as we do. If we take damage, there's actually something called guard regain, where we can get health back once we hit enemies. And so the bosses actually can do that, to my knowledge. And so if you're not damaging them as quickly as you would like, sometimes your scripts get a little messed up because of that. And you know what? You have to be able to react to any RNG that's thrown at you by this game.
Yeah, it's oftentimes a difficult element of any run. As much as we like to script and deal with as many things as we can naturally, sometimes things just go awry. And so dealing with that is part of your charge as a runner. You know, testing your wisdom, testing your execution. It's all required, and morethna's doing a fantastic job right now of making his way through the game.
So we have encountered our second NPC boss fight. So theoretically, I don't know how many times you got this during your runs, but you can not fight the Atoned, but it requires that you fight a different NPC in a very small... Yes, the survivor in the very small like office room, essentially. So most runners, I don't think I've seen anyone choose...
I tested the survivor. It's really annoying.
Okay, I was just going to say, almost everyone that I know chooses to do the Atone because, as you can see, she has a tendency to do this splash attack almost. With
she thinks she's so cool with her uppercut, but it turns out that we can take big advantage of this. Some bosses do that. Some bosses are highly complex, crazy move trees, incredible positional reads, and some bosses, like the Atone, they kind of just do the same attack over and over if you know how to take advantage of the situation.
That can get out of cycle.
It can. It's possible.
If you miss the backstab, she will go into a different attack cycle, which is recoverable. It's not unmanageable.
Yeah, the old strat used to be the puppet string to lure her all the way back and then pull her and then over and over. But in terms of the... Oh, look at this.
I do have to say, morethna. Oh, he has the voice on. When he's done his practice in the past, he doesn't have his voice on, the Jiminy's voice on. So this is kind of a meme part of the run. I think every runner has gone through this phase where we come up with different things that we do during the gondola section, because it's basically just this long segue to go from one part of the game to the next, and we get this companion, Jiminy.
Oh,
so
Jiminy.
Would this be an okay time for me to talk about some of the donations we've gotten?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, because they are coming in fast and furious. There's so much. We have already passed $500 raised, and we are not even half an hour into this run.
That's fantastic.
It's incredible to see. I need to thank Don't Kill Me Jay, I Am Monograph, Just Trimander, Kelp TV, Dr. Dude, PhD, Melon, and What Is Metal. Thank you all so much. Lidless as well. And they're coming in as I'm talking about them. Like, they're absolutely flying in. Y'all are doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much. And remember, we are still working toward $750 raised for that all Ergo Bosses incentive. And I really am not worried about that, but that doesn't mean you should stop getting those donations in. So, yeah, we are under 200 to hit that already. Let's hit it as soon as we can.
I agree. Hit the donations, but not getting hit in game. Big difference.
Yes.
And especially now as we approach a very evil area.
Gosh, I love this area because it is so wild and sometimes it just goes wrong. I wish I had a clever name for the bridge coming up. But basically, we are approaching a
This
cathedral.
is the bridge of
despair.
Success.
Oh, well, not even that bridge. This isn't even the bridge that I'm despairing about
the
already.
Other
but that was a
see.
great jump that we saw. There is an even worse bridge coming up.
Yes.
And the problem with this bridge is there is a brawl occurring between some puppets and some carcasses, which are like zombie-like enemies. Sometimes the puppets do an excellent job and they kill all of the zombies, which is ideal. And sometimes all of the zombies or carcasses survive, essentially, and you have to weave through. Yeah, so here's the brawl. Here's the bridge. And
Welcome.
here's the chaos.
Look at all of this. Not only
So,
is it an amazing
this
location,
guy's
but
being
yeah, we get some
feisty.
entertainment. Oh, right. You're not
Yep.
wrong, because again, this is semi-RNG, as you said. Oh, they're already all dead. That's usually not always the case immediately. But we're going to bob and weave and bob. Nice dodge. Bait out the elite enemy. Don't want to take him down. We maneuver around the outside, continue forward, and we're past the brawl. Yeah, that's a very, again, all very difficult sections, including the smaller bridge I was so excited about. That if you fall down, you have to deal with enemies.
That's true.
These, you got to deal with these enemies. There's all kinds of things that, again, in an RNG way or just in a way that you think are going to go right that tend to or can go wrong. You have to really adapt to the situation. And again, morethna is making it look easy peasy.
There's actually a meme that can happen at the first door that we would have opened where you get the view of the bridge. Sometimes those carcasses can be so close to you that they can hit you out of the cinematic.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. So as you regain control of your character, that zombie can just choose to ruin your day, essentially.
And that counts. So some people may be like, well, that shouldn't count, right? Well, in terms of Hitless and the spirit of the challenge necessarily, what we like to think about is that even if the game glitches, even if the game is doing something quote unquote unfair, we typically, view those hits as allowed because, or those count because the nature of the run is trying to, defeat the game to the best of our abilities, even if it's cheating, and especially when it's cheating, that victory feels all the greater.
Exactly. So this section, I don't know how you feel about this section, but this is a little bit of a finicky area, quite a bit of pathing and things to be aware of as we're running across these very, very finicky balance beams, I will say. The rafters are formidable, and we have these, I always call them Big Mama. I'm sure they have a better name, but these
they are big, scary people, and I'm afraid every time. Oh God, see, they're already dead for me. Okay, actually, to be honest, I'm still back at the hotel after the parade master.
Oh no,
I'm still, I'm just like taking my time. I'm hanging out with Sophia, but over here, Moreno's already running. He's just, I don't care. Parkour traps, whatever. These ladies throwing things at me. I don't care. Just get past everything because the expertise here is phenomenal. This little section here is one of the few hits that I took on my runs as well. That seems so simple, running past that enemy, but again, the mini obstacles, the weird collision, sometimes you just get stuck, sometimes weird things or bad things happen, but again, morethna understands what needs to happen as well, and so he's making it just seem so simple, which is fantastic.
100%. I think that is one thing that I just always want to drive home with certain no-hit runs, especially this no-hit run. There are so many things that can go wrong in this game,
yes.
And he's just making it look so buttery smooth. Speaking of things that can go wrong, we have a terrible elite enemy that we will kill.
Shield lad.
Yes. So, as we'll see,
the glaive putting
base
in
up
work.
our damage. Perfect.
Using fire because fire is strong against carcasses in this case, not the electric this time.
Really, really emphasizing those weaknesses and trying to get the most out of our
Great
damage.
job.
Excellent work. Every person that I know that's going to run this game is going to script that enemy.
Yep.
Because a lot of the elites in this game, especially that elite, they have these shielding tendencies. And they can shield and then they run into you and they do what I call the shield bash. You can't hit them, but they sure as heck can take out like almost all of your HP with one of those swings. And so that is why, as no-hit runners, it's very important that we work on trying to basically one-cycle a lot of these elites, because the startups on those attacks sometimes feel unfair almost with how quickly they can happen.
And one of the amazing things about this game in general, and that's why I love this game, so this is an excellent video game, everyone should play this game, is because an enemy like that, or that elite like that, you basically just see it one time, rather than like repeating a bunch of things over and over, which is fine to repeat stuff, of course, but what's unique about this game sometimes is that they'll just throw in a random unique elite just out of nowhere and you'll never see them again. And it's really, really cool because especially in a Hitless or challenge context, you have to adapt or understand and learn that situation too. And this game is just so fun with so many elements like that, from the enemies to the different parkour sections to the bosses, and it's such a good time.
I agree entirely. This is, if you guys are fans of whether it's the Soul series or other Souls-likes that have been developed in the years, this should be at the top of your list. It is very polished. The dev team is very responsive. They're currently working on a DLC. We don't really have information on the release, but we have gotten some hints. And yeah, it deserves your time and attention. It is an incredible game.
Now, typically, while we go towards a character, I believe, goes by the name of Alidoro, we choose not to. We usually take an elevator sometimes to go grab some amulets early, but instead, we've ignored doing that. We're keeping the decay around. We're going through, grabbing the shortcut. And again, while we were complimenting this game to high heaven, morethna has been just blazing through, expert maneuvering around all the enemies again, past certain scripted events as well. That's an important element of these runs. Sometimes enemies will do certain things when you go around a corner or you open a door or things of that nature where you have to kind of adapt and react to them in that moment too. But again, morethna, I mean, I will say it every time. I will say it every time. Making it look just absolutely simple. It's wonderful to see.
It really is. He's doing a couple errands. I had a split that I called errands in my
I like
run,
that. Reminds me of SpongeBob. Did you finish those errands? I like that.
And it is... Oh, I lost feed myself. But he, based off what I saw...
He's still on the errands.
Okay, he was going to be running towards a door that was previously covered by the acid pool, and he'll be opening that to get, I believe they're called cryptexes in this game, and you can have one of the characters, Vanini Benini,
good old Lorenzini Vanini.
Yes, Lorenzini Vanini. And he will decipher that for us, and it'll give us the location, kind of like a little puzzle, little Easter egg hunt, so to speak. And it'll give us access to certain items, typically quartz, as we mentioned, are those beautiful items to upgrade our P organ. And that is what morethna is or was working on. I can't see, but I will fix it for me.
I'll give you the play-by-play. He just talked to Pulcinella. Pulcinella is Vanini's right-hand man, his butler. He picked up the electric grindstone. The grindstone is an infinite way of applying electricity to your weapon per stargazer. Picked up as well a technique crank that we will see applied later on in terms of updating or improving your weapons as well. Provided Vanini himself the cryptic vessel in order to run that errand. And we're going to see that errand play out here very shortly as we return to the Elysian Boulevard section to solve the riddle and provide us with more upgrade materials to further our character, to make us stronger, to take down a forthcoming encounter that is extremely difficult. This next upcoming boss in the next 5 minutes or so is a
slug man.
Yeah, he's there's we'll talk about certain bosses later on. Everyone's like most least favorite. Well, I won't spoil stuff, but this next boss, from what we know, at least from all the runners that have completed this run, he is a big sticking point. This boss is evil. Evil boss.
Do I have a moment before we get into it?
Yes.
Yo, sure, please do, please.
I just wanted to mention that we have already hit the all area bosses incentive. Thank you all so incredibly much. Some people that helped us out with that were Biggest Geek Ever and Samoflage, who donated $50 each. Thank you so much. Mountain Camel, Soul Slayer, King Rai, Necro Zero, just a few of the people who have helped us get there. Thank you all. Keep them coming. There will be more incentives. We'll announce them later, but there will be more.
Yes, thank you all. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. That is amazing. And we get to see some extra bosses, one extra boss in particular. That is very cool. So you've unlocked a really unique part of this game with
remain unnamed.
I am not saying anything further.
It's a little bit of a...
your puns are on point. I love them.
I'm trying. I'm just trying to see what works and what doesn't, So we're talking to Paul and Dina. We're picking up some catalyst. The Fable Catalyst provides us with, Fable in the middle of a run or during a boss fight because, as we're spending it, we need to get it back. We purchase some more quartz. And the reason why we're able to pick up more quartz, we actually picked up a supply crate after that one crazy shield bash elite from earlier on. And so we're going back to the P organ, unlocking another synergy for more another extra amulet slot. We're going to get more attack when weapon durability is at maximum, which is kind of an idea where we didn't touch on that either. There's puppet strength, there's weapon durability relates to the idea that when you're using your weapon, it degrades. And when it's degrading, you have to keep that in mind or keep track of that, because if it gets into the red or breaks entirely, really bad things can happen. But when it's at maximum now, so meaning basically the very first time you attack with it, morethna is going to do a huge amount of damage that's going to be really important for a lot of setups and kills later on.
Yes, 100%. And typically, especially in no-hit runs, you'll pretty much never see durability really become too much of an issue. But that is something to be mindful of, especially there are certain status effects that can get afflicted to your character, and it creates this not necessarily just leech on your own life, but it also makes your weapon durability go down in sync. So I would say durability isn't something we typically pay a lot of attention to, but as Banjo pointed out, that max durability is important for that initial hard-hitting attack.
And I love that concept. I love that concept as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
We get to see Andreas. Oh my goodness, has this boss caused issues for so many runners?
Yes, this is a big one.
You're going to see something that not too many people do, if at all anyone does.
I think I know what you're talking about, and yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yes.
His design's amazing. If you love Bloodborne, you got to play this game, because if you see this boss, it's incredible.
He is a very, very unique boss, I will say.
That
Beautiful.
tongue.
Oh,
Jeez Louise, the tongue attacks are so evil.
So
great damage, great counter, good fire pickups, interesting fury attack. You have to run underneath that one.
be careful because of his readjustments.
Yeah.
His readjustments when his back is to you are very scary. You must maintain distance because sometimes he does these like behind the back swipes, very awkward, handled very, very well. And obviously we're seeing huge damage. Huge.
Yes, and we're about to see a setup for the start of Phase 2. Phase 2 is extremely difficult. Here we go. Setting up by throwing those original consumables we picked up.
Oh, unfortunate. That's okay.
Darn
Can we recover?
worm. We
Recovery
can.
here is going to be the biggest thing.
Yes.
And this is going to come from experience. We'll see what morethna can do.
Nice deflect again. Now, it's important to note on this fight, depending on which side you're on, dictates which part of the boss you fight. So if you're on the worm side, you fight Mr. Andreas. You're on the slug side, you fight the slug.
Okay, so we got Big Laser. Does not seem like he will be able to skip it here, but if you stay right in this little pocket,
That's right.
he is able to just outspace
done.
it, essentially.
Yes.
And now he's got to be very careful. So he's getting out of the point where I think he's comfortable with how much damage that heavy hitting Fable Art's going to do. So he's playing it a little bit safer, which I really think is the smart thing to do at this point. Well done. Very,
Well
very
done.
I
Yeah.
just want to emphasize how hard it is to recover from hits like that, okay?
Yes.
When
Yeah.
you are going into a boss fight and you have an exact plan, which his plan was going to be doing that guard counter and do this massive attack on Andreas. Obviously, it didn't go as he was expecting, but he beautifully executed recovery strat, that's typically, in my opinion, one of the most impressive things about doing live events is being able to adjust quickly depending on what the game demands. Which
Yeah,
was
and
perfect.
it demonstrates knowledge as well, because it's one thing to script a boss, it's another thing to be able to adapt to the situation, know what they're doing, and react accordingly. It's never any of these again, and you touched on it a lot earlier too, which is good. Is that this game is not just difficult for just the bosses and what they do, but the mechanics. The parry timings, the dodge timings. None of it is ever easy. So in any hitless context, whether or not you're doing a running section like this or having to do a singular perfect parry,
Yes.
it's always going to be an endeavor. But again, morethna's making it look extremely easy, and it was an awesome display for that fight too.
Exactly, yes. Now, typically in a no-hit run, you would have reset. It depends, right? We all work on a PB basis, so that's a personal best. So if you're working with a low PB, there is a chance that you would have reset, but this is a hitless speed, okay? We are looking at both sides of the coin. We want low hits and we want a fast run, which morethna is executing perfectly. And obviously this is a live event, so of course we're not resetting in a speed run environment, but that's how typically it would work, just to allow viewers to understand how that would usually go in the context of trying to achieve a no-hit run.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, because in the context or in the case of Andreas, what's important is the consumables, right? Because if you run using those consumables to set your
Yes.
script and you run out of them, it's like, well, okay, well now what? Well, you either use a save state or you might reset the run. But yeah, in the case of this event, we're gonna keep it going because, I mean, we can keep it going because, again, morethna did a wonderful job of adapting to that situation.
Yes, that is a really good point that I didn't even think of. But you have to remember, we are used to having a set amount of items for every boss. Yeah. And once those are depleted early on, you can't do anything about it. There's no vendor except for the one coming up. So obviously you couldn't have accessed him prior to Andreas. Also, we just saw a really cool little tech.
I love that tech, I was going to say.
Yep. So it's very interesting. It's pretty common, it seems, that there's a lot of throwable items in Souls and Souls-like games that create noise that distract enemies. So he uses what's called, I believe, a saw-toothed wheel, and you can throw it at the wall, and it just creates a little distraction, which gives us a little bit more leeway in terms of what we can get away with and what we have to deal with.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in this game in particular, you don't really have that ever. You have consumables like individual things to throw, but in other games, you know, whether it's Elden Ring with a kukri or in Dark Souls 1 with a bow, where you can have really long range ideas or things to, you know, maneuver around enemies or distract them entirely. In this game, you really just have the sawtooth, and it's very niche, but when it works, it really works. In the case of that ginormous elite, which again is just really cool. There's like, here's whatever, just fight this cool elite, but we're just kind of like, no, thank you, and we move on our way.
Yeah, there are, I think you hit on this a little bit earlier. The elite uniqueness is very cool in this game. There's not too many repeat elites. And if they are, it's like maybe a 2-time appearance. So if we were required to fight every single one of these, that would drastically increase the mastery and skill required, because they're so difficult. Their timings are so weird and so different. So having these different tools to utilize at our own expense is very important.
Yeah, and there's quite a few tools that we also picked up as well throughout this previous running section from Andreas to the city here, which included, or the slums rather. Hold on. Hold that thought. Nice recovery. Very well done.
She can be tricky. I've had some tricky moments with that lady.
But very good recovery. Yeah, that's a tricky thing. We're picking up quartz. We picked up actually a couple amulets as well from Alidoro. We actually talked to him briefly. We picked up the Conquering Amulet as well as the Extreme Modification Amulet, both of which will be utilized.
I'm so proud of you and so happy you remember that, because I definitely knew the whole title and totally would have filled in for you had you had a lapse there, but you did so good.
Honestly, I knew you knew, but I just wanted to take all the glory, so I apologize for my selfishness, in fact.
No,
so
that's all you.
But we picked up those amulets so that we could do more damage, both in terms of our parries as well as our Fable Art accruement. So it's going to be played into later on. And we're actually going to pick up another key. I was going to say, I think the ring. Solve it really quick. It's a candle. I know, if you guys didn't solve that quickly enough, it's okay. morethna did for us. We get another key, and we're going to be utilizing that one in the house later on. That's the house key, I believe.
I had a little mantra that I would say over and over when I did my runs.
That's nice.
To remember
That's
the
good.
puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a good point, because if you get it wrong, bad things happen.
Yes, your damage is messed up. You don't have the same stats or DPS that you're expecting. So so one thing that I like to point out in that last section, those dogs, dang it, not the trap hit. It's ruined. I can't believe it. It's over.
morethna, could you, I thought you were supposed to dodge it, man.
We've been over this, man. We only had one session with morethna, and that was specifically to go over that trap. I
can't believe this.
Man.
Okay, to be fair, this is a joke. That trap is always happening. You can't avoid it. It's literally impossible. I think everyone's tried. I tried 1,000 different ways. It's not possible. You literally.
It's scripted. It's just a running meme in the community at this point. And it's funny because you'll get new viewers, every now and then. It'll come in and they're watching, and there's always one that freaks out or asks about it. So you just have to embrace. You have to embrace it.
Yeah, and it's important to know too, because it's not just Liza P. Actually, again, without spoilers, DS1 and many other games just have hits where it's like the community has to come to a decision and be like, literally, this cannot count because it's impossible to avoid, or you just can't deal with it, or something along those lines. There's a lot of famous examples across the entire franchise of the Souls games and the Souls likes, and in Liza P. that's the one. It's,
We're going into the webbits. Oh, Banjo, it is time
I'm gonna mute myself because when it comes to this fight, I don't even want to see these lads.
This fight
my God.
is a I'm gonna call it a gank fight.
Yes.
Thankfully, there is a way that you're going to see morethna actually controls how many bosses are out at one time. So typically it's going to be one parry followed up by a heavy attack that will force a new enemy to come into the fight. That's based off the damage threshold that he knows very perfectly. The first separate enemy, the little rabbit that we see, she's not terrible. On the list of terrible additions, she's like
the least.
She's probably the least terrible.
Yeah.
But you'll see as we go on.
They go in order.
They do go in order. I think that's a perfect way to describe it. And
my God.
they are very frustrating to deal with. So you will see morethna using certain items, certain throwables to dispatch of them. Because we are not dealing with these guys. I did cave to throwable technique for the last one because I just could not.
Oh man, the
I
final
could not.
fire bunny is absolutely abysmal, and we're gonna see that we're gonna prevent him from doing anything. So actually, morethna's on the side there. We'll talk about his consumables and how the items work in terms of how you access them. But he's actually highlighted a very important one known as the cluster. And the cluster is going to be a way to control this final bunny, because this final bunny has a particular technique that is horrendous. And so we're going to see this show up very soon. As Bree said, once the health threshold goes, he comes down, clusters out. Perfect. Get away from me. I don't want to deal with you. Please die.
Big
Please
boy
die.
getting in the way. Big boy getting in the way. Oh my God, big brother, you had to just make it spicy.
Let's go.
Always. Well
That's
done.
awesome.
GG's. So I can assure you, guys, that almost every runner that I know has spent upwards of probably 10 hours in this boss fight just trying to lab something to make it much more palatable. Because holy goodness, if you get, like, for instance, if you have the big brother out and somehow you accidentally summon 2 of the siblings, that's pretty much rip. And that final saber rabbit, Banjo kind of alluded to this briefly. He has this quick stab. It is this flurry of attacks, just forward piercing stabs.
My Lord.
And it is nearly impossible to avoid. And it is terrible and it shouldn't exist, but it does. But don't worry,
Gave him
guys.
puppet string. Like,
Yes, yes.
What is the problem?
Don't worry, we didn't even get to see the best part of those bosses, which we will get to see later. And
What?
I'm not gonna say,
But they're gone. What do you mean? I thought they're.
well, maybe in our nightmares because we're also
okay.
traumatized about.
Well, man, I hope we don't see them again.
They're definitely
I'll
gone
just-
forever, for sure.
Thank goodness. All
Yeah,
right. Well, I won't even think about them for the time being.
Me too. Yeah, I'm gonna go take my shower from sweating so much, just like seeing the name pop up on the
Oh my
screen.
God, I'm getting sweats. Just like like you said, spending hours and hours.
Yes.
Like, does this throwable work? What if you time it like this? What if this happens? What if I'm over here? And it's just like,
To my knowledge, there is only one weapon combination that can skip some of the ads entirely, and that usually involves a weapon called the wrench. The wrench has an ability that just puts out this insane amount of damage. And so with the right combination of throwables and attacks done prior to a certain health point, you can actually take out that big sibling. And if you do take him out prior to the other sibling summoning, then the fight is over. But there's only one weapon, to my current knowledge, that can achieve that. So...
And when it comes to, the weapons themselves, or how we're kind of taking advantage of the situations, like the bunnies, we're seeing again morethna upgrade more of the P organ, applying more synergies, and utilizing efficiency in his quartz usage as well, getting back our Fable, and now we're heading towards. We picked up a key from Lady Antonia, the proprietor of this hotel, to Rosa Isabel Street. Now, Bree, are you a fan of, I don't know, operas and operettas? Like, do you happen to enjoy?
I have never been.
Well, you're lucky because here in Rosa Isabel Street, we have just that. We have the incredible entertainment sector of Krot, including but not limited to Adelina Corday, the lady in the red dress. Now, I do know a lot of the lore of this game because I love this game, and so I'm always ecstatic to share the lore. So again, I encourage everyone to look into, if you like the lore, you like Bloodborne, you like Souls Likes, again, this is a really awesome game. And this area in particular is very awesome too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That story is pretty tragic.
Yes,
In terms
yeah.
of like family competition and jealousy and things we're willing to do for success. There's a lot of like very interesting themes tied into like some of the side stories in this game.
I almost feel bad, except for the fact that now we're going to be
Careful for that
fighting.
bullet. We're good.
Yeah, that's true. That bullet is actually really dangerous as well.
So, White Lady. Oh my goodness, what a boss. So he's gonna throw some canisters on the ground, which are going to continuously apply damage while she is being backstabbed. So not only is he doing backstab damage, she's also she is also a menace.
Huge menace.
You will see, hopefully not any too terrifying of techniques that this agile NPC likes to pull out of nowhere, but she is very fast. Oh my god! Can we just get a round of applause for that? I know some of you may not appreciate what just happened, but I'm gonna say one statement about the White Lady. She is wicked fast. And if you get her into a series where she's able to attack, oh my goodness, I hope you have been doing your reflex response testings and making sure that you are primed, because she is scary.
And she's one of the few enemies in the game that can parry you as well.
Yeah.
On a casual sense. If it happens on a hitless run, you're pretty much dead. It's over. But like, it's the fact that she can do that is just like
the moments of disrespect. Like it's the humbling moments. It's like you get really good at like learning a system, and then they just use it back at you,
it's
and
one
you're
of those
like,
memes. What the heck? You're not supposed to be able to do that. Only I can do that.
Exactly. Yes. But that was a very, very nice cycle.
Yeah. Great. And in the context of Hitless, great script. If we can, what we can script, because oftentimes we don't really want to fight again everything, and that includes bosses. Why fight the bosses if you don't have to fight the bosses?
Exactly. That was one of my pride and joys, actually, was a script I developed for White Lady. And when I first found it, I was kind of in disbelief, because at the time, scripts didn't like perfectly exist for her for the weapon that I was using.
Yeah.
And so I like tested it over and over, and I posted about it, and people are like, that's not possible. Like, I know she's going to break out of it. I'm like, I know it shouldn't be possible, but it seems like it's working. So I did it like 60 times. I'm not joking. I did it like 60 times in a row.
A true lab, if you will. That's fantastic.
Do I have a moment
I love that. Oh, please.
Of course, yeah.
I just wanted to mention how excited I am that we have passed $1,000 raised already, not even an hour into the run. That is absolutely incredible. Special thank you to the Wizard of Wang and Israel Plus 90 for $100 each. Thank you so much for your contributions, and to everyone else as well. Keep them coming.
That's amazing. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. And again, thank you to morethna for, again, the great display here. Running past a lot of enemies in some weird parts of Rosa as well. I wanted to go to the, some of these operas and operettas soon, but right now the Mad Clown Puppet, watch this. No siree.
So
I love that
disrespectful.
too. I know.
love it.
That's a great word again. Talk about the disrespect. Like, you want to do this to me? I don't think so.
You're going to hit me with this abysmal, fast, really, really ridiculous telescopic-like attack? No, sir. And he just uses
Third time's the charm.
Over and over again, and he's able to dispatch again another ridiculously scary mini boss by utilizing the power of this weapon and of course morethna's skill set.
Yeah, it's the designs of these enemies and the locations. Like, again, I'm so, as you mentioned, technically the studio, I can't recall if they've done everything or how much they've done in the past, but this being like their first major contribution, their first like almost like double or triple A. Mobile games first, okay.
Yes.
So again, the fact that this game was received not only so well, but again, and obviously now we're a bit biased, but I even coming at it from the beginning of like never really knowing much about the game, absolutely thoroughly impressed from the music to the designs to the gameplay. It's so fun. It's such a fantastic video game.
It is a game, and I'm truly not trying to be dramatic, but it is a game that will move you from the design, visual design, audio design. There are many players that have had, there's records that you can collect depending on different NPC quest lines that you can do throughout the game, and they each connect to the quest line that you completed. And the amount of emotion that they have been able to distill into their music alone is phenomenal. Quick note, he is picking up the Technique Amulet here. This is one of the only stat boosts that we're going to see throughout the run. So this is EL10, ergo level 10.
Keep that in mind. We have no levels, right?
No
We've
levels.
been doing this with the
He's just flying through the game. He has not leveled his character.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the only stat boosts that you will see. It gives, to my knowledge, +4 to Technique, which is analogous to Dexterity, if that is more helpful to the Souls players.
That's correct. And there's that house key. Finally using it to pick up another quartz. We often use these keys to grab these extra quartz. We ran right now we're in the Opera House, and this is one of the coolest areas of the game. It has one of probably my favorite design enemies, the spider puppeteer ladies. They're super cool. The actual like decor of this place, the ambiance, and of course the boss fight that's forthcoming too. But
one thing about the spider ladies, we didn't get to see one, but they actually create marionette strings on these little puppet girls that we're seeing in this room. Thankfully, we didn't see any puppet strings, but once in a while, there's a spider lady that patrols above.
That's right.
And if you are out of cycle or you're not fast enough, for instance, these girls can get these marionette strings, which causes them to basically hyper armor everything. And man, do they pack a punch, and they really make up ground on a lot of their attacks.
It's such a funny dichotomy because there are these tiny little these tiny little puppets, and they're just like, sorry, we're gonna destroy you now. I love it so much.
Basically, you're like, oh, you're kind of unsuspecting, and then suddenly they get those strings, and you're like, oh my goodness.
We picked up now, we turned in the Vanini box, which is a comparison or parallel to the Crot Supply box. Vanini. Yeah, I tell people, I'm always doing like the hand motions, like Pulcinella. Like, if you can't see me, I'm doing it. I'm doing the classic. Like, I love it. I love the setting. I could just compliment this game like all the time because like there's just so much about it that's so endearing and so fun. And so we picked up a new amulet for more carcass damage or more damage against carcasses, as well as another grindstone, another sort of semi-infinite grindstone, which is the acid grindstone, which acid is the counterpart to the human enemies that will take on more synergies, more quartz, more damage. It's more. The theme is always more. Give me more. Right?
Exactly.
More stamina, more damage, more fable, more. But sorry, except for levels. No levels. You're not allowed to do that. Sorry,
One
Morethna.
thing that I did want to point out with the P organ. So I don't think we highlighted this, but every time that he's making a selection, that has its own ability. But that ability is under a subsection. So the subsection actually, once you complete it, so you insert enough quartz into that area, you get another overarching ability. I'm going to be honest, with no hit, those are not super consequential, but there is a specific way that he is choosing to use his quartz to unlock higher tiers. There are sections that you can complete, and with each of those nodes will say completed, it will further advance the tree, so it allows him to get a higher tier like sub ability, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that's why you're seeing him choose certain nodes versus others, essentially.
And we're choosing to go in. Here we go. My favorite boss design in the game, the phase 1, I should say. Phase 1 has like it's an amazing. We'll let it speak for itself, but this is the King of Puppets, and this fight is super, super cool. Here we go. Cool music, cool. Look at the design. He's so cool looking. Oh my god.
He is amazing.
So phase 1 of King of Puppets is pretty straightforward. Phase 2 has a lot of crazy attacks. The damage is insane. Damage is absolutely
So he's going to force a stagger here
wild.
with some throwables.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly executed. He's applying a grindstone here, and then he's going to take this riposte, sending him into phase 2. Wonderful to skip the second half of that phase.
Yes. And now, Mr. Romeo. Here we go.
Beautiful
Very
parry.
nice counter.
Oh.
And now we're going to be seeing some incredible damage because we do not want to deal with a particular attack from Mr. Rovio. The damage, the riposte, the forced phase transition of the so-called fire waterfowl, and it's
Perfect.
over. Let's go.
It is over. That was
Well
excellent.
done.
And
Yes.
again, one of those fights that you're watching and you're saying to yourself, if you've not played this game, oh, that wasn't that bad. My gosh, that boss has this one attack amongst many others. Okay, he is formidable in many ways, but there is one attack that lasts for probably at least 10 to 12 seconds. And he is just recklessly swinging and pursuing you. It's like a Bloodborne boss where you're like, when are you gonna stop attacking? When is
Yep.
my turn? And it's pretty tricky to dodge. There are consistent dodges for it, but again, if we can skip it, we're gonna skip it, which is exactly what he did perfectly.
Yeah, and we're seeing a cool idea that morethna is now employing because of this sort of speediness of this run, that when morethna is going into a boss fight, we apply all of our amulets. When we are done with the boss fight, we actually take almost all of them off because
Yes.
in this game, unlike a lot of the most recent Souls games, your capacity, that is to say your equipment load, is dictating how quick you are in the game. So when you're in light load, hold on, don't save that thought.
Dog
okay.
moment. Okay.
You foreshadowed it way early on, right? These darn dogs. You know,
I know, I'm telling you.
They're quite. Oh, jeez, Louise.
You
But
must
yes,
watch out
long
for the
story short.
canines.
Yeah, when it comes to amulets, when it comes to capacity, when it comes to equipment load, it's really important for speediness as well as potential like maneuvering as well. It's really important, and so morethna's keeping that in mind as he moves throughout the rest of this game.
Sorry, Banjo and Bree. Do I have a moment just to talk about the charity real quick?
Anytime.
Chat, like Helix said, we have hit $1,000 raised. This is absolutely wild. And we have an announcement to make. The second bonus incentive amount, we are going to announce right now, chat, okay? $1,750. We are going to have morethna walk on a treadmill while running. Okay, this is not a drill. There's a treadmill ready to go, and it will take a moment to set up, so we might need morethna to find a good place to quit out, but this is going to be really cool. So if you want to see morethna walk on a treadmill while running, and the puns are just super there, so I'm not going to say them. I'll let commentary take care of that. But yeah, if you want to see that, get those donos in. We have about an hour and change until the end of the run, so there's plenty of time. But yeah, have at it.
There's plenty of time, but that doesn't mean you should wait, because
Correct.
my understanding is the sooner this gets met, the more treadmill time we get.
Exactly.
And we want to, keeping morethna healthy is important because we want him to
Heart
be
health.
nice and strong, right, for the rest of this run. So we got to see that incentive through to the end, please.
Yes. One thing that I want to point out with a couple of the enemies here, there
Yes.
is one enemy type, I call him the sploosher. They have a tendency, it's usually their first attack,
I already know what you're talking about.
they sploosh and they have this acid that just, it gushes from their body. I have no better way of saying that. And that's an instant attack, and it does damage you. So you have to be very mindful of not allowing that to occur.
Honestly, maybe more dangerous than this guy. He
Yes,
looks
look at this. Look
incredibly
at that.
crazy,
Oh my
but he's
gosh.
gone. You know,
Damage.
take a bath, right? Just lay down here, dude. It's over. And this is morethna's time. Let's go. Yeah. Again, another elite where it's like, no, it's we don't need to deal with them. The big damage is exactly what we want. Again, taking off the amulets. You're gonna see that a lot now for the rest of the run. That he'll pause the game, or the in-game pause, where he will then take off the amulets to speed up and keep moving. And in terms of getting through this area, this is the Lorenzini arcade, and this location is again just rife with crazy zombies and
I
falling
love those behemoth
decay, and
enemies.
Those guys are so funny with their
I
like
love
weird
them.
eyebrow mustaches. I love them.
Yes, it's like, is that your face? Is that your
Yeah.
neck? Is that
Yeah.
some other orifice that I just don't know what
I'm
it
not
is?
gonna lie, I'm
but-
jealous. I wish I could grow a mustache like that. And I do all right, but every time I see them, I'm just like, you make me mad, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Yeah.
I think we will see one of those splooshers coming up, and I just
That's
like
right.
to point them out out because it is very important that you understand that dynamic. So what you're seeing
Morethna takes him down.
Yeah, exactly. So he's like, I know that danger and I'm not dealing with that. So he just takes him out using some throwables, which it's honestly a good tactic because it really is an instant attack and it will hit you, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we didn't mention this too, that there's with those consumables, or now I should say, sorry, the throwables, that because we've gotten through the slums from earlier, we have access to infinite throwables and consumables forever. We can just pick up and buy. Before we were very limited in the early game, but then the developers were like, okay, you made it this far, you can give all of your ergo to this one dude and he will give you everything you want for the rest of the game. We still pick up stuff here and there because it's cheaper or better, but, and speaking of using consumables.
We are seeing the gesture.
This guy's a crazy cool design.
He is. I don't know when you initially got to play your first playthrough.
I heard before I joined, this lad was unbelievably unfair.
He used to be just like, how do I deal with him, essentially? And now he's a lot more, I'll say, squishier. They've made him a lot squishier, a bit more manageable to understand. But again, it doesn't matter because the damage that we're dealing, it makes it obsolete, essentially.
And we're halfway through the game, no level ups. Like, go on, yeah.
One thing that he did drop is, I forget the actual name of it, but it gives you more ergo when you kill enemies and or bosses. So he does utilize that in some areas just to give him a little bit more spending money, right? So we're not spending money or ergo on levels, as we can tell with this run, but we do spend a lot of money on both upgrade materials as well as those throwables. So that is
my sources are telling me it's called the Hunter's Amulet. That's what my inside sources are letting me know that is the name of the amulet.
Hunter's Amulet?
The Hunter's Amulet,
sure.
yeah.
I just want to pop in.
I knew that as well.
I want to pop in very briefly and just mention that we have $500 from the Wizard of Wang, which means we have already passed $1,500 raised for the American Heart Association. And that means we are just over $200 from the treadmill incentive. Thank you so much.
Huge. Wow.
Sorry, please continue. Your commentary has been fantastic.
Morethna run. Oh, no, thank you. Appreciate it. It's thanks to Morethna and again the event for hosting us and letting us do this, because we're only as good as y'all, and so thank you for that. Appreciate it.
As you can tell, Banjo and I could probably talk about this game all day. So
I want to talk about it all day.
You're just giving me the opportunity to go over things that I really love. So.
It's an excellent, like, every time this game is incredible, and I absolutely 100% agree, because there's so much we want to touch on or talk about, but we can't because there's so much happening, and that's why we hope that y'all will eventually pick up this game.
Speaking of a lot happening, I actually have to interrupt again because we just hit that incentive.
Let's go!
This girl plus 90 donates $209, and now we are at 1,750 total to the American Heart Association, which means we have already hit the treadmill incentive.
Yes.
That is ridiculous. Thank you so much.
Wow.
That was so fast.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Absolutely amazing.
Morethna, look at what you did.
Chat, look at what you did.
This is amazing. Morethna's now gonna. You said the puns are coming, right? Because now we're not just gonna be running the running sections. We're gonna be running the running sections. It's gonna be fantastic.
So we'll give him a little bit of time. I believe he's going to transition over to the treadmill.
Yeah.
So we have to allow him to get set up.
I think I see him getting set up with it right now.
Yes.
Big shout outs to Morethna, by the way, for being willing to do this. This is such a fun incentive, and also to just take a couple minutes in the middle of the run and set this up is really funny.
I don't know if you guys have ever played games while on a treadmill, so I've done it a few times. I take my Switch, and I'll either be running or walking on a treadmill.
That's great.
I usually have to do it with casual games because my brain can do it. It's just not flawless. So I want to remind you guys of how many multitasks Morethna is starting to take on now. This is ridiculous.
The only thing I'm usually doing is munching on some Cheetos. So walking at the same time as like playing a video game, let alone a hitless run.
No, wait, what is it? Like pat your belly or like rub your belly, pat your nose or something like that?
Good luck.
I'm doing it right now. Are you?
Yeah. Hold on, wait.
If we can't
I'm still doing those hand motions with Pulcinella.
No.
So speaking of running, we run back to the what's known as the Red Lobster is the location, this little side restaurant. And the joke with this guy is that this merchant, he's literally the strongest enemy in the game or the strongest character because the amount of ergo he has probably in his coffers at this point rivals that of Simon Manus.
Ergo and unlimited consumables. This guy is
true.
a
Where is he
walking
getting all
ammunitions
this?
box. It's concerning.
That's actually an interesting point because if he wanted to attack you, we would lose immediately. He would throw the kitchen sink.
You would be Walker of Illusions to him, and then you would be.
That's a good future reference. I like that.
Yes.
I can't. That's a because that. Oh my god, that boss.
I can't wait.
God. That's gonna be a good time too. I mean, and again, that's expertly pointed out because of the ergo. We're not leveling, so we have thousands and thousands of ergo. So why not use it for something else? Just use the money to buy from the merchant to get all the consumables you could ever want for the rest of the game.
Which might seem excessive at times, but sometimes things do go awry where sections may need to be reset or you have to use more than anticipated. So that's definitely not, you're not being overly cautious because things can happen and having those additional throwables can be nice.
Yeah, and we're going to use them on this large robot contraption. I was watching you go through this area, taking down this robot dude, because this robot dude is a huge menace in general.
Oh, yes.
He is like absolutely ridiculous.
I was forcing myself to learn him, right? Because I'm very used to my no-hit route.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I should probably just try to do this normally. And then I remembered why I don't do it normally.
Because he's spinning around, accelerating. It's like, ooh. But in general, it's like, I got decay pots. I don't have to deal with you whatsoever.
Exactly. This next section, super precarious. These guys, my friend used to think they were horses on like a unicycle. I don't even know how you would get to that particular interpretation out of these enemies, but they're just puppets on unicycles. They throw things. But of course, morethna doesn't allow them to do that. Waits for big shield bash dude to do his standard running attack forward, and morethna just maneuvers around him. Otherwise, a very tight corridor that you have with that shield guy to the point that you actually cannot weave around him. He takes up the entire space. So truly a wall there.
And they're really cool because, again, it's this idea that the designs and the locations, they're not really around. They're like in a couple spots, and so you just have to know how they work and how they operate. We get more quartz for future upgrades again. It's a nice little pickup. We ignore that elite, so that elite enemy, there's a couple of those. Those guys are they're delayed attacks. And Liza P is maybe, I'd say, infamous. We talk about, we sometimes complain about like things like Elden Ring for having delays. This game with some bosses,
Margit
they'll just
would be put to shame.
Absolutely, that's a very, very good comparison. He would be crying as well.
He would be, yes. So he's taking out this particular puppet that again is blocking the corridor here. So you have to start taking out some of these enemies. As we see, they decided that we're going to put a literal wall on top of
they're
some
just
raptors.
like, that's a good point. There's just a ton of enemies now all in these tight spaces. They're just like, we don't want you to progress very quickly. We're going to see a cool technique here with the puppet stream. We upgraded it earlier, called the trace, which is going to pull us. Typically we pull them, now we're going to pull in, and that allows us to kind of maneuver. We do that a couple times depending on the run if you're utilizing the puppet string like that. As we continue to make through this major area, which we should mention is known as the Grand Exhibition. The Grand Exhibition is their perfect timing. Look at that, look at the banner. That was amazing. I did not plan that, I promise. We're taking care of this area because this location is on the way to, another important spot that we have to get to eventually, but this place is really interesting again because of its lore and the setup for the eventual boss that's coming up. But again, morethna's kind of maneuvering through all the tight spaces, maybe picking up a key here, I believe, as well.
Should be, yep. This is an easy one.
Another phone call, ring.
Yep.
All right, really quick, chat, really quick. You have like 2 seconds. It's an egg.
What is the?
I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, morethna. He was letting people. So I'm so used to the speed. All right, I got tricked.
Don't worry. My chat has like I said, a train mantra where they would just say the same thing over and over again.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And here's the puzzle. Not the hardest puzzle in the world. It's got to turn the statue, get the key, and we're going to use that key one more time later on to pick up, you guessed it, more quartz for more upgrades.
Exactly. You might have heard it, but there were some bullets that were just nipping at the Achilles of P there as he's running. That is a gunman that you do need to be aware of. So as long as you run diagonally there, you should be able to strafe it. This mini, I'm not going to spoil his name, but this mini boss that's behind us, he always gets a little too close for comfort as you're opening this box. I've never personally seen him get to the... Look at him! He's flopping on the ground! Look at him! He's just being a little menace. Why are you here? Go back to where you came from. Like, you don't need to be that close to me. But he's really hard. We do not have to kill him.
He's very difficult.
I actually spent more time on him the other day. I did a no leveling run just to prepare for this, and
That's right,
I spent more time on him than I did on the boss fight coming up because I just don't know him.
I was lurking in that stream, and so I was watching you go through that, and it was so funny because he's like, it's like you're, and it's a great point you bring up because you can get so knowledgeable, and so you as the player can get so knowledgeable about like the bosses and certain running sections, but then we all have more to learn, right? And that's a great example of that enemy right there. If you've never fought him before, when he's just like doing an uppercut, doing a crazy double like kick dive thing, he's doing
literally
a crazy
caves
weird
in your chest
like,
we his feet as he flies
like,
through the air. Yeah, he's unbelievable.
We all want to learn more and be better, but sometimes we all come from the same position where we don't know, but then we learn, we practice, and we improve. And it's a great demonstration and something that we all adhere to as hitless runners or challenge runners in general. And I think that's a great point.
Yep.
More synergies, more courts. Very well done. We have at this
like
point again. There's a lot of different. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yep, we should have probably gotten the additional weapon attack enhancement, where if we have no amount of our pulse cells, which I don't think we've actually used that term, but pulse cells are the heals in this game. So if we use all of those, we actually get increased damage. And that would have been the second one that we acquired for this run. We're pretty much getting to the point where we're probably almost done with quartz, because you reach a certain point where the super useful ones, especially in the context of a challenge and speed run, they start to fall off a little bit. But that is another huge damage boost when that pulse cell is discharged or used.
Yeah, you can kind of think of it as a sort of inverse, if those are familiar with the Souls game, the red Tearstone ring, kind of, where it's like at sort of without any heals, so we're kind of running on empty, if you will. We are basically maximizing our damage because the game is saying, if you're willing to not have any heals, we're willing to give you more damage. And so in a casual sense, that can be kind of like a cool little incentive for trying to be better or trying to have more damage in general. But on a hitless run, it's like, wow, thank you. I'm going to take advantage of that every single time.
We are about to see the champion.
This is where
love
evolution
this boss fight.
becomes real.
Exactly. Oh my god, his voice lines.
This is my favorite boss.
Antagonistic to, like, he is so mean to the player, and I love it. He calls you weak.
So unfit.
I love that. Oh,
Beautiful
nicely done.
parry.
The opener. Very well done.
As
Oh,
you'll see,
nice. Oh, nice little mini stagger.
morethna kind of spaces himself behind, because then it's going to force him to do this behind the back swing. It's pretty consistent as long
Look at
as
the
you're
damage.
positioned. Yep.
Yes.
I think Banjo, I know we always point out damage, right? But this guy is chunky, okay? He's got a big health bar.
Large.
So watching it get melted like this it's mind-blowing, truly.
So there's multiple openers he can do.
Nice
You get the nice opener. Yeah, it's RNG. Position behind the back, as Bree says. Staggering him again. We're using decay for extra damage because he counts as human. Strafing around to avoid the grab. Expertly done. Nearly there into the scripted mini stagger. Behind again. Deflect counter. Stagger.
Stay close to force the downward slam. So he has two variations on his true stagger. He has a downward slam versus if you're a little bit further, like mid-distance, he'll do some swipes. Amazing. GG's.
Amazing.
Guys, I want you to know how quick
Evolution,
and
my
amazing that was. Yeah, weak? Who's weak now?
Yeah, get out of here. I don't want to deal with you anymore. Well done. That was extremely cool.
Yeah, that
One of the
was
reasons
really
why that
impressive.
boss... Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, okay. I
was just mentioning that was really impressive. I was I'm just impressed. That's all.
I don't want to get in the way of the donations. Yeah, so that's okay. No, I agree. I absolutely agree. Because that boss fight's incredible. There's so much to talk about with it because of the strafing, the parrying. It's wonderful. It's an awesome fight.
It is. It's so fun, and he's very nuanced. So my approach for him, I did almost exclusive parrying. I did a little bit of like outspacing and some strafing depending on the attacks that he did, but I did a lot of parrying on him. And I actually would regularly get clips from other runners saying, hey, Brie, you should look at this very scary thing that he did to me today. And I'm like, okay, I'll see. And things I truly don't know if I'd ever seen. So it just goes to show play styles really draw out certain things from a lot of the bosses, a lot of the enemies. So really being able to understand when they can do certain attacks is just a whole part of like the name of the game, essentially. And it all is dependent on your play style.
Yeah, and it's so super cool because again, so many bosses require so many different ideas. You can use consumables, you can parry, you can strafe, you can dodge, you can outspace. It's like
damage.
any
I
Souls
just
game,
can't get over that damage.
The damage is insane too. And again, this glaive we should mention too was not originally in the game. It was again, I believe you actually mentioned it right at the start. We should mention it again that originally you didn't have this weapon, but they patched it in, and then speedrunners started using it, hit runners started using it because it's just that good.
Yep, I like this cheeky behind the carriage.
Yes,
strat
this is cool.
Here.
And it only works as you throw right-handed, which is crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. And then he actually, he'd killed him this time. It must have
sometimes he lives,
I think it must have been a damage roll maybe previously.
That's a good point.
Yeah, damage rolls are an unfortunate thing in this game.
Probably the one
one thing that you're like, as a someone who likes to perfect things and understand things and script, it's not great. So damage rolls essentially, I'm sure many of you have heard the term before, but there is like a plus or minus % damage on every attack that can happen. Usually the range isn't significant enough with the damage that we're dealing that it'll cause major issues. But for instance, in that situation, it is something you need to pay attention to because an enemy could live theoretically when you're not expecting them to. So just a tidbit of knowledge that you kind of have to understand with the mechanics in this game.
Yeah, and you can readily see that in things like Elden Ring, where it's like if you say like buff, 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 and do an attack, you always do 1,000 damage. But in Lies of P, it's buff, buff, buff. It's like, okay, well, this time I did 900, and then, okay, the second time, wait, what, 1,100? Wait, what's happening here? And it's basically kind of doing this roll/average, and you have to play around that as part of what you're setting up because the damage values dictate, again, some staggers and some, thresholds for phase transitions.
Exactly.
Hyper important stuff that all is taken into consideration.
Yep, very good way to give an example of that. We are picking up the amulet.
Arm of God.
Yes, the amulet from Victor. Do you want to remind us what this amulet does, Banjo?
I shall, because this amulet, believe it or not, increases your damage the more you attack. So I believe it stacks up to 4 times.
That sounds correct, yep.
So as you're attacking base with R1s or R2s, the game says, oh, you're attacking, here's some damage. Oh, you're still attacking, here's more damage. And it's really nice because, again, in the context of Hitless or challenge running, when we're trying to min-max, maximizing it by applying all those R1s and whatnot is going to be very juicy. In terms of making sure that we can dish out what we can.
And I know we keep saying, oh, we're getting all these cool amulets. We're getting all of this wonderful opportunity to do more damage. But one thing that we have to pay special attention to is our weight. So we are limited, especially in the context of a no leveling run, by our capacity, which is basically our weight limit in this game, amongst other things that it adds to us. But what it essentially means is we can reach certain levels, which Banjo has explained in the context of the speed at which our character runs.
Yep.
But it does affect the gameplay, and that is something you need to be mindful of for certain boss fights. So we can't just keep putting heavy amulet on heavy amulet, etc., because it does influence things. So you need to be able to play around and really balance that weight limit.
Yeah, and it's important too because when it comes to the gameplay itself, or at least the choices you make in terms of your weapon and in terms of your amulet choice, that's going to dictate again the type of damage or the type of scripts you can do. And so it's really, really important to have all that knowledge. And this comes naturally over time as you run and practice and learn. But again, morethna has it down to a science, and so it's nothing but a Friday.
Banjo, do you like running through this section? Because I think that's what we're gonna do.
I love running. I think morethna, you better be running still. All right, we hit that incentive. Okay, I want to make sure that he's not stopping. Right, make sure.
Oh yeah, no, morethna is running in game and in real life because this gets real. Oh, okay, so this was not as close as I normally see it. I have seen it pretty close in some of his practice.
I've seen the butterfly body block him.
Yes.
It's like,
no.
whoa, I gotta-
Very important point. Very important point. There are some of those butterflies in that path.
Yeah.
That they look really dainty and cute and pretty until they mess you up and then you get blasted by a boulder. That does happen. There's also one that, like towards the end of the game that kind of pushes you around on this little balance beam and you don't fall, but you sure as heck feel like you're gonna fall every time you run around.
That butterfly, it's so evil the way they did that. They just had to put like a large. We'll see that happen because it's a very again it's one of those things like niche knowledge. Like it happens so quick, but if you aren't aware, it would spell doom and literally near the end of the run too, which is so brutal sometimes.
Yes, I cannot wait. I know we have a lot of game to see, and we also have one of my favorite bosses coming up. But the end of the run, you don't like this guy. He's erratic. If I would to give one word to this boss, he would be erratic. And he can be very mean depending on your distancing related to him. He's got some very nasty phase 2 attacks that are very hard to either parry or dodge depending on your preference, and so
it's that combination, the
Mm-hmm.
claustrophobic arena with as we'll see, hopefully not the charge attacks in phase 1 and especially phase 2.
Use the door strat to my knowledge. So the door strat allows you to actually stand by the door and the boss actually presents itself to you and you can get some really, really nice, easy damage as it's recovering.
Yeah.
But we will see what we get today.
The green monster.
Oh, we did not do door strat. Oh,
he's going to bait out the dig.
Yes,
which is great because the recovery that this boss has after the dig attack is very, very long. Like he's just waiting there. Yeah, this is a great little strategy. You run underneath that. That's right. You see the head shake. You run. Bring a big overhead. Very nice.
Huge damage.
Big damage. Big stagger. Another big overhead.
Awesome parryable attack. That is a beautiful first phase. Didn't get his other combo that he certainly could have done.
Now we're using Fighter because this boss does count as decay in terms of his damage or status type. But we're not done. Phase 1 leads to phase 2. Puppet devouring. Now we're getting as an opener. Okay, the idle walk. Tricky delay. There's slight different timings. This is the Scrapped Watchman from earlier, but he has slightly different timings than some of his other attacks he normally does. I call this the slappy slap. He just kind of waits there.
I call it the crab, but I like the slappy slap too.
That works too, yeah. Okay, here we go. Slightly different timings here. He's slightly slower.
Yup. We got a big slam.
Nicely done.
The big slam. You love to see it. You get
Very
a stagger
well
out of it. We didn't actually get to see the follow-up. So if the initial combination wasn't impressive enough, he actually takes his tendrils. Amazing job, Morethna.
Yes,
that
expertly
was great.
done.
Oh, I love to see it.
Perfect.
But with that combo, he takes his tendrils and he like slaps them outwards. But if you're standing perfectly aligned in the middle, you actually won't get hit by them. But it doesn't matter because we didn't even have to see it.
Yeah, and I'll give it credit. The way they adapt or they speaking of Victor, they evolutionized that boss away from the Scrapped Watchman.
I wanted to talk about that, yes. So there is, something to be said about reused bosses, especially in a game that's pretty near and dear to the hearts of Banjo and I. That's not this game. A little Elden Ring. There's a couple bosses that we see maybe one too many times potentially,
or 12 too many times.
Yeah. Once you fought all the Knight's Calves, you would probably appreciate what we're talking about. But that's what I love about this game is we get some maybe encounters that we've seen before, but they are uniquely transformed. So it feels like a fresh fight. It feels like a different experience. You're still challenged. It's not like, oh my gosh, this guy. But it also gives you familiarity saying, hey, I have a baseline going into this fight. At least I don't feel completely helpless. And I kind of like that reward almost of saying, hey, I put in all this time learning this first boss, and now I get to reuse that skill. So I think that's a really well done boss fight from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think that, when it comes to that sort of learning or that sort of adaptation, it's really important because being able to leverage or build off of that foundation is always really cool in a game like this, or even Elden Ring, because even Elden Ring does that to some degree. We have, you know, a different arena, it's out in the open, stuff like that, where it's kind of like testing you in a different scenario. And this is very similar. If you know the Scrapped Watchman, you're gonna have a little bit of an easier time. Still not easy. It's definitely not easy. But again, morethna makes it look so. And we're getting now back through this area, which looks semi-familiar.
Station.
Yeah, this is a little interesting spot. Very important running section. We have to roll into that enemy, the dude that's putting his head into the ground, because they actually shoot up these weird tentacles that shoot up at you. A very important throw coming up as well. Throw is in a cluster, I believe. Yes, nice. To distract or stop this. Again, brand new elite. Just here you go. Here's another new one. Oh, you like new elites, do you?
My
hold on.
gosh.
Wait a minute.
We have the Manticore. So the Manticore is a very, very interesting elite. It's an armored elite. So if you hit certain parts of its body, you actually will clink, kind of like you're hitting a wall. It's like, whoa, that's really fun, and I'm so happy for me. But he has a weak spot.
One spot, yeah. Very unfortunate for him. Ooh, this is gonna, holy moly. On a Friday? Really?
Yeah, bro just woke up. He didn't even get to have his coffee yet. He's like, oh, man, I was
unfortunately
going on my
for him,
walk.
yeah, he's got an amulet we need, and
a very important amulet. Yes.
Yeah, the final of the trio. Expertly done again. Very nice strip.
That was amazing. I cannot even begin to tell you the number of times that I've clinked off the booty. It's so embarrassing. It's like, no, not you. And then he does this attack. So like if you do clink, sometimes you can recover. Sometimes you panic. Sometimes I would panic. And I ran away. That mini boss has an attack. He literally flies. He launches
that's
himself,
true. He does like a whee.
I had a run that was active, and I recovered, and he did that at me, and I forgot he could do it, and he stopped mere centimeters from my face, and it was the most comical moment.
He is, and again, it's one of those cases again where it's like, if you can fight him if you really want to on your hitless run. Yeah, it's great, but sometimes you just really don't.
But
and so
an important amulet, right? So
that's
correct
right,
me
the
if I'm wrong.
Murderer Puppets amulet. Yeah.
Yes. So this amulet is going to enhance our damage dealt to human type enemies.
That's
and
right.
That we have a lot of those coming up. So that is a very, very important asset to the amulet team.
We're going to hide away inside this, I believe it's the final key we use to get the best drip in the game, by the way. This is my favorite
It's
drip.
my favorite too.
Oh, let's
Is this
go.
your favorite?
I love this drip. He's going to do it,
Thank
morethna.
you, no way.
Oh,
Are
morethna,
you
you're my
joking
heart.
me?
Your
Oh
heart's
my
working a lot
gosh.
harder because you're running, while you're playing, and I'm just kind of sitting here like a goofball, but I appreciate that.
As if this run could not get any better, we get to see
now
the Leon,
we're looking
the Leon
spicy.
outfit. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, we hide in there not just for the drip, but also for, I believe, the quartz, but also that robber weasel.
Oh
You
my
actually,
gosh.
he chases you to the ends of the earth sometimes. Again, it's one of those weird jank things where it's like, sometimes he won't, sometimes he will. But if you hide inside that room, he kind of de-aggroes and you can continue on your way.
Yeah, I actually stopped going to the Stargazer there because I lost the run to him following me a pretty long distance. It was very disappointing, but yeah, I just started running all the way through because I was not dealing with that.
We dealt with those splooshers, as we call them, right?
Yep,
the splooshes are down. They're
Yep.
gone for the count. Another crazy. You want more unique enemies? Here you go again. Here's another unique elite. This guy is insane.
He is, and he has a Fury attack that is very fast, and we are going to see the startup to it. There it was. And we just interrupt it. And I will say that's a fast attack. If you are not perfectly executing the sequence that morethna just did, that attack is very quick and you would die. It's going to one-shot you. So
I remember my first playthrough of the game. He's just... It's just so cool. You're just like, you think you see that guy ever again? No, you don't. He's like, knock, knock, hello, I want to get in. But he's like, this is my only appearance, like in the whole, at least I think, at least on this run, at least, just to hone in on the idea that it's just so cool. They just have these cool ideas and these cool movesets, and they just want to test you in your ability.
Look
at this place
area.
too. This area is amazing as well.
I like getting to see that blue ergo appearance. That is the
relic of Trismegistus is pushing forth through the Crot area. It's
so
such
we get
a
to
cool,
see a puppet string strat coming up. I actually had
the
the
trace
chance
again.
to help develop this strat. It was myself
That's
and
right, yeah.
another runner. I was, trying to come up with different ways of getting through this section.
Yeah.
And I found an area where you could snipe the enemy from above. I was just trying to use it as a section where I could take out this enemy safely. But what we found is you can actually use that puppet pole that Banjo was talking about, and we can actually fly up just like we just saw, and it lets you
Clean.
skip a very precarious bridge that has another elite monster who's very annoying to get around.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the collision of multiple minds, and we developed that.
That's
and
great.
I
Good
don't
job,
think that will
morethna.
ever.
And thank you, Bree.
Thank you, morethna, for doing it, because that is a little finicky.
that's-
Sometimes you can get caught on the edge. It is a bit precise.
Oh man, this guy. From what I understand, again, the original patches, I didn't have to deal with him to some degree like this, but apparently he was also in a ridiculously evil
The headbang.
encounter. Yeah, yeah.
I call that the headbanger. Listen to some Slipknot, and he has no understanding of what's going on around in the world, because he will just ruin your day no matter what you're doing.
Yeah,
but again, we don't have to see it.
No, we don't need to deal with it. And this is level 10, or the minimum level. We're using I think we're using keyboard and mouse here to set up a throw. Hey, hold on. Using keyboard and mouse here to set up a throw. Using keyboard and mouse here to set up a throw into the hotel, or the little mini side building here, to distract. This is a really cool strat. I did not know this existed before watching morethna's runs
Nope.
here, to bring this guy down. Then he goes back up to turn him around and then go
Perfect.
past him. Really, really cool idea.
Yep.
Again, using those sawtooths, it's very rare to use them, but guess what? When they work, they work. It's fantastic stuff.
These alchemist enemies are very scary. They have a couple of different attack variations.
They're so cool. They have like a
They
cane.
are.
I just like how cool
They are
Yeah.
very cool, but they
They're
are
evil.
evil is a perfect way to describe them, because they have a lot of fast variations that once they are doing it, it is very hard to react to. So I really like that strat. Yeah, that was a new one to me watching some of his more recent runs, and it really helps minimize the risk.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because these enemies are starting to get upgraded, right? We're not in the final section yet, but we're approaching late game, and so some of these enemies are starting to get really strong, really different. Those guys that when they die or they perish, they explode, so you have to stay away from them. There's a lot happening in terms of the upgraded difficulty as we're getting closer and closer to the late game. Not so much the finale, because it turns out the late game, the pacing right now, it's interesting because again we're doing a lot of running here, right? But as we're about to find out very soon, there's a particular boss rush that's about to happen in the middle of this game. That's going to kind of go back to back to back as we prepare for that late game.
It really speeds up the late game. I don't want to say that the run feels like it drags, but there is the critical point, which I would also agree is here, where it just suddenly feels like, okay, we're fighting. That is our job. We must survive and fight. And then suddenly you get to the end of the game. So there is absolutely no lack of action at the end of this run. Some final sections of no-hit runs are, I don't want to say they're chill, but they're not super difficult in terms of, especially running sections. That is not this game. This game, in my opinion, out of all the games that I have done no-hit, and I've done all the From Software games no-hit amongst a few variety games, this is a gauntlet. It is absolutely just strewn with difficult enemies, difficult pathings, and every runner has spent a lot of time just belly aching a little bit over how to deal with it.
Yeah, that final section, and we'll get to that, is it's calm before the storm as you run through that desert, and we'll talk about that too. But then
that's
it's
such a good way to put it.
But then it's evil, and more evil to come, because Bree mentioned this upcoming boss a little bit earlier. They're going to be known as the Walker of Illusion, and they like to scream, so it's a very Bloodborne inspired fight. But we don't really want to engage them too much, because again, it turns out we're gonna wait for this enemy to turn around. Actually, he can chase you to the ladder. It's important to do that. But this enemy, or rather this boss fight right up this next ladder, is extremely tricky.
Tricky
because of
is
their
the word.
timings and the quick sort of mini delays and actually
the
some of their
scream,
hitboxes.
yes.
Yeah, the scream attack as well as the phase transition. But as we should probably see here, we don't really want to deal with it fully. We're gonna deal with it a little bit.
We get to see a lot of the different challenges, I'll say, for this fight in terms of a split that occurs.
That's right.
But we don't have to deal with it.
Nice
really
scripted
cool.
opener, getting lots of damage,
Beautiful,
preventing
interrupting
this,
that scream, which has a huge area it affects,
right,
and it staggers you. So it does count as a hit.
Here comes the split. Nicely
Perfect.
done, taking down,
Excellent.
throwing the shot puts. Nice to interrupt that again. Should be GG.
That is
One
gorgeous.
little gorgeous indeed.
I love
Congratulations again, GG. Well
It's
done.
so
That's awesome.
Nice.
Very
so you'll
good.
see like certain weapons are better in some contexts versus others. For me, myself, I never had to deal with the split. I never had to worry about seeing an illusion come out. So her name is actually Walker of Illusions, and she creates copies of herself. And yes, you do have to fight both of those at one time in that small arena. And yes, it is as scary as it sounds. But as you saw morethna do, he immediately focused that illusion, did all the damage to the illusion, and then re-staggered the actual boss.
Yeah, when I did a nothing run, which was like just no upgrades, no like status, no anything, that fight was funny
so
because it's one of the hardest ones on the whole run. And I fought her so long in the illusion phase that it despawned.
No way.
Yeah, actually despawns.
I didn't even think that could happen.
Yeah,
I've
I was
always
really
just focused
scared.
it. Wow.
I was. I did. So
We're heading now to, well, it looks like we did not get the next Stargazer. We went back to the original Stargazer prior to Walker.
That's important because, if you go down this next elevator, you are locked into this next boss fight for just this next little bit, which is kind of going back to nearly the beginning of the game, again, similar to the Central Station. And so, we go back to do a little bit of upgrades, a little bit of management, so that we can prepare for another familiar face, or maybe familiar face is the wrong term, familiar sploosh. Again, I'm not entirely sure at this point because he's not. He's kind of missing some details now.
He's missing details, but has grown some appendages.
Yeah, no, they're really gross and ugh.
This is quite for how lighthearted it can feel sometimes, and like the appearance of things. It is very. It's almost like a horror game in some ways.
Absolutely. If you are a fan of Sekiro, and Bloodborne, especially Bloodborne, this is like they wear their inspiration on their sleeve. Like you said, the details are there. Like they know what they love, and they not so much emulate, I should say that way. Their inspiration, the inspiration they had from some of their favorite, the developers, their favorite games is super apparent. And it's part of the reason why I love this game is I wasn't expecting much going into it when I first played, but because I love Bloodborne, it's my favorite one of the FromSoft franchise.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So seeing this game play out the way they did, I was just like so taken away and so impressed by everything.
One thing to point out, these yellow goldish smoky crystals, you can see something called disruption that's building up on morethna's character. So if that bar gets full, you die. It's like
Game over.
It's like Death Blight in Elden Ring. It's like, what is it called in Dark Souls 1? I can't even remember.
Curse. I think it's just getting cursed.
Curse in Dark Souls 1. A few different like insta-death mechanics throughout the games, and that is disruption in this game.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty.
taking those out.
Yeah, it's actually a good point because it's not. Again, this game is so cool. It's not really around all that much, but you just have to know what it's doing and where it's at. Because
One
if
of
you
the Opera
don't,
House spider ladies, they do it.
That's right. Yeah,
we pointed out those enemies earlier,
Yeah.
so it pops
I love
up.
that enemy.
Exactly. It's not obnoxious for that status, right? It's there, but it's not overly prevalent.
Yeah.
But yes, we get to see the corrupted.
The biggest
Parade
sploosh of
Master.
all.
Yes, mega sploosh.
Mega sploosh. Here we go.
So we get the opener, we get a parry, we get
Very
another
nice.
parry, and then we get to harness his very long phase transition Get away and good.
Nicely
Okay.
done. Yeah.
So I know there was a lot of splooshing and arms and appendages
It couldn't
flying
even
around.
say much.
Yes.
It was
So
there and he's gone. Yeah.
yep, it was just basically over. But one thing that us as runners and that morethna has to be aware of, which, you know, how much damage was dealt in such a short amount of time, you don't have to be too aware of it, but he does summon a little decay buddy. And these decay buddies do cause damage. And so if that decoy or decay blob does come up, you have to be aware of his presence and know that you are no longer fighting just the parade master himself. But
Yeah, and that blob is super scary.
Oh, yeah, they're
because,
scary.
They're slow. They get in the way. They when they die, they explode. Yeah,
Exactly.
there's so much going on again.
Yep.
But thankfully, the damage and the hit. Oh, yeah. The hypocrite here too. This is we're not gonna be hypocrites ourselves. I promise. We're gonna continue to be doing well here on this run. We're here in the middle now of part of the lore, basically the plot, if you will, that's going on. There is a bunch of people that have gone into this hotel of ours, and they sort of roughed up the place. I'm for some reason, part of my soul is starting to feel a little uneasy. Because there's like I don't know. I just feel like we've felt some similar force that's forthcoming. There's like a certain trio or so.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird little. I don't know.
almost
maybe
as if someone who likes to play tricks on us previously has returned from the depths.
Yeah, maybe it's nothing. I mean, we should be fine.
probably just the wind.
We have morethna here. Morethna's going to carry us to victory. I have no doubt. No matter what is happening in the future, we should be totally fine.
One thing I wanted to point out that we haven't touched on yet, but it is a cool little mechanic that the game kind of just gives to us. So they have this training area, and there's a couple different puppet dummies that you can test your abilities, your fable arts, your damage, essentially, on them. But it is something that we can abuse a little bit. So
Yes.
if you go into and out of a courtyard, so if you're facing that hypocrite sign that we saw over the main stargazer in the hotel, if you go to the right of that, there's a courtyard that you probably have seen morethna go into and out of just very briefly. It happens so quickly that maybe you have not noticed it, but what that allows is it gives him full fable. So those blue bars are filled up, so we don't have to worry about getting fable catalyst. We don't have to worry about generating that on an enemy. We just instantly have that filled going into the next fights.
Yeah, and it's been utilized heavily, not just for hitless runs, but for speed runs too. It's just super convenient. It's normally you have to either waste the catalyst or fight an enemy. Like you build it typically through like attacking, in particular like charge R2 stuff, using charge attacks. But in this case, at the hotel, we can just prime it all the way to the beginning or to top, and we need that for. Oh boy, this next boss fight again. We talked about the rush, right? We had Walker of Illusions, now we had Corrupted Parade Master, and now the big bad, the most infamous fight in the entire game.
This is one of the most challenging no-hit fights that exists.
I would probably agree with that, yeah.
morethna has a couple techniques that helps to minimize some of the risk, but I will say we had the Black Rabbit Brotherhood siblings to deal with. And before, we could control who was in the fight. Now, they're all up.
You get to fight all three. How
And guess
fun.
what? It's not just the fact that they have melee attacks, but as we just saw from the spear guy, they all have ranged projectiles. Thankfully, there is a bit of a timer to it, so you have to have this internal clock.
Oh, God. The puppet string. It's so brutal.
I know.
Not
It's
fair.
instant. It's so fast.
He's a cheater. I hate him.
Yeah, it's very scary. So the puppet string we're seeing from the saber guy, which is the one that morethna is trying to focus. I really like this strategy. He just needs to be immediately so clear and focused on what is going on around him. He's probably using audio extensively to hear, is a throwable coming out? Very excellently done taking out that saber guy.
This is not easy. It's like, oh, you're just running around. It's not easy. This is extremely nefarious, the timings, as Bree mentioned.
It's like you have about 7 different things that you're thinking of while running around in this boss room. And like sometimes you can just get incredibly unlucky. And it's not just the bosses. So if you see the boss room, scattered about, is just piles of trash. And when I say piles of trash, they are literal trash, but also figuratively trash because you can get stuck on them. We've seen a couple weird instances of collision throughout this game, and they have some really awkward interactions, and you can get stuck. And so it's not just the boss fight, it's the boss room. You're fighting multiple battles at once.
I think that's a fantastic way to put it, because you need to be, it's one of those fights, and sometimes, not every boss fight, because I'm going to give you a good arena, but that's an excellent element to any encounter sometimes, is this idea that you're not just dealing with, the mechanics of them and what you're doing, but is your positional and situational awareness topped off, and that's vital. I see what he did. I think he did that to avoid the...
He did it on purpose, and I thought it was such a good choice.
Well done.
I've been thinking about the throwables from Little Rabbit. I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't get caught. So if you guys saw, he was going for another follow-up attack on that backstab, but then he could tell, and he had a sense of that Little Rabbit was going to throw her throwables, and he kind of deterred his path. At the right moment. That was so
And remember
well
from
done.
Donkey Days, these backstabs are not easy. Again, it seems like, just go in and get a backstab. It's very precise. You have to know the positioning of their back and how they turn when they attack. Morethna's making the absolute right choices. This is an important part of the fight, too. He was taking down their health very close to each other. Yeah, watch that. Yeah, I'll be quiet.
This is incredible. That is just disgusting. That is disgusting. That is an incredible kill. You can dance around with that guy for a while, so you didn't even really get to see him do multiple wave attacks because Morethna just took every opportunity to punish. He is not messing around, and he took full advantage of that damage he has available to him.
Wonderful stuff.
I cannot stress enough how difficult that boss fight is.
Yeah.
I think when there's a lot of new viewers for no-hit runs, when you see a lot of these bosses get melted by damage, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for BRB2, because everyone has that in their mind that it's a bane of their existence, and they just can't wait to see them get melted. And then they realize it's still very difficult. I think all of us would love an opportunity to have something that we could just nuke them. But that just, it's not really a reality with the way that they're programmed in the fight. So
your sentence, you said, I can't wait to fight BRB2. I think you're literally the first person in the entire world that has ever said that.
No. I meant from the viewer standpoint of watching the runners.
Saying, even just putting that sentence together like that, I don't think anyone has ever uttered those words in that order before.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah.
We can all breathe a huge sigh of relief. I don't know how Morethna feels, but usually this is the part of the run where I'm like, okay, we're here. We're at Alchemist Isle. We're at the calm before the storm, as Banjo alluded to earlier. And we have a little bit of time to just relax after a very, very...
Ooh, nice cinema, Morethna. I like it. That's good. Yeah, keep that shot just like that. I like that a lot. Ooh, yeah, the Arch Abbey looming in the distance. It's ergo power accumulating at the top for Simon Manus, so he can finally become God. But I'll wait for we're going to skip the cutscene, I think. But in general, the actual buildup of this, as we said, the pacing is pretty... It's pretty conniving because they kind of lull you into a false sense of security with some of the running sections here and in between, but then this final mega tower, and it is mega.
Mega.
It's so difficult. There's so much going on that has to be taken into account, but we'll get to all that shortly. There is technically I think we're gonna maybe go back to prep ourselves a little bit, but then we're going to have another encounter again. Because we can't actually enter the tower right away. We're actually having to deal with a particularly sadly named boss fight. This boss doesn't really get... A little bit of a gatekeeping
moment, we'll say, with this guy.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah. But I remember on my first playthrough of this game, I had a few people that had just... The only thing they said was, this section... It feels like it just keeps going. And at first I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, I feel like it's broken out pretty good. And then it just keeps going. It is just amazing how how much they packed into what feels like, you know, you're kind of having the suspense and built up to the end of the game. You can kind of just figure it out based off of the storyline, etc. But man, they really take a while to get to the penultimate and ultimate bosses.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think they were in terms of the actual story going on. It is all of it's very important, right? In terms of we don't get to see that. It's a good point again in terms of challenge runs, not just speed runs, but hitless runs too. You kind of ignore cutscenes, you skip out on extra quest lines, you try to the extra stuff, the side stuff. You do some of it, of course, but a lot of the time you're really trying to streamline, because in any percent fashion, that's what you're really trying to do. Maybe for all boss stuff, or maybe for all vanilla bosses and the like, some of that kind of comes into play. But in general, when it comes to even this game, while the majority of it has to be completed more or less, because this game is actually much more linearized than a lot of the other games in the Souls franchise per se, it is still a really cool idea that they decided to give you one large final level to explore, and the verticality of it all, right? It's reminiscent of like the new Elden Ring DLC to some degree, and all that. They were trying out some different stuff, and so that's why like all of it's very exciting to see. If this game, as I like to describe this game, hopefully right now at least, as like their Demon Souls. If this is their Demon Souls, I can't wait for their Dark Souls.
It does feel like that. I like that comparison.
Yeah. It's gonna. I think the sequel is gonna be just unbelievably incredible. I'm biased, but it's like I have high hopes. So
no, I really like that comparison to Demon Souls, with the segmented sections and each area feeling like it does flow with the rest of the game, but they all do feel unique enough in itself. So I'm excited to see what they choose to do with the DLC. I am so waiting for some news. Oh my gosh.
They released like the new images. I should, as a small return to that, we were doing the technique that Bree mentioned just briefly earlier, getting all of our Fable back, dipping into that courtyard. We picked up all of the different materials we want, maybe not one more time, but at least a lot of them, a lot of different throwables for the next few running sections, or I should say few. It's one ginormous like running section, essentially.
We may get away with not having any further shop visits, but that's not always the case. We will see how this goes and what we have to deal with. But first, we have another boss who feels very reminiscent of a Demon Souls boss. It's very funny that you brought that up, because that's what this boss fight feels a little bit. He feels impossible until you understand him.
Yeah, it's there's going to be a cool, there's some cool ideas present with this fight. It's actually going to be a really neat one that's going to be employed, I believe, to do a lot of damage. For those who've never seen this maneuver, we're going to hopefully see morethna pull it off here. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't look like it should work, but it does, because this boss something's weird about how they calculate the damage. I'll just say it like that.
Yes. Also, like looking behind here, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but sometimes the dogs in this area.
The dogs every time.
Have you ever seen them go invisible?
Yes, I have.
Yes. So they have the cloaking ability apparently here. So
good opener.
Yep.
Parry, boom.
Beautiful.
And now we're gonna see something. It's pretty funny. It looks weird, but it works. I promise. He's gonna throw a couple clusters and watch his damage.
Oh, that is just unbelievable. I'm actually, I think the only thing that I need to remind myself for, because when I first saw this, I'm like, how are we not one-cycling this guy? Guys, this is base level. That was base level.
Yeah, this is a casual 22,000 damage, at base level, whatever. It's the end of the game. What can we say?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, granted, all riposte or fatal attacks that we're taking on this enemy does chunk his health pretty significantly, but that's just something that, like, when I was first watching, I'm like, wow, I'm so surprised he's not one-cycling. And then I put it in perspective of, oh my gosh, he's not leveling technique or motivity or anything.
Yeah. Yep. That cluster idea is funny because it basically calculates the cluster grenade as an extra damage multiplier on top of the riposte. So he's actually getting like way more damage than you would necessarily get on any other attempt. It's a really, really cool idea.
Yes. This section, it can be tricky because you have a missile a rocket launcher that's continuously.
They're so mean. They're like, hey, it's already hard enough, but how about a rocket launcher? You know?
Let's add some projectiles on top of this very scary. I don't even know what I want to call him. And he doesn't actually choose to kill him here.
Yeah, this is a cool idea. I didn't realize this was a thing as well, but you can use the very rare instance of, we call it the bone out, or using using Dark Souls terms, but in this case, it's the pocket watch, allowing you to escape from the overworld. It's actually an important, one of the reasons I bring this up as well is because, and I think you know this too for sure, is that when it comes to boss fights, you can't bone out. You can't leave a boss fight. It's one of the things that's understated often about the difficulty of this game. It's Sekiro-esque somewhat, but even then, not really, because once you're in a boss fight, you have to do it. So if your script goes wrong, you forgot your materials, you didn't upgrade, it's too late, right? You're in it to win it at that point.
You have to adjust.
Yeah, and so in the overworld, you can do it anytime you want. It's okay. And so morethna chooses to do that there because it skips the cutscene and avoids the enemy going after us as well. It's a really, really cool idea.
A little caveat to what Banjo said, I do believe there is an item that does allow you to leave a boss room, but it is not allowed in hitless runs because it kills the character.
The last resort.
Yep, exactly. So if we use that item, you can, in another context of just playing this game, you can use that, but unfortunately, but fortunately, we can't use that as hitless runners. It just, for me, that dog, I hate that. Oh yes, welcome to Double Manticore Alley. We want to bait attacks from these manticores. The reason why is if we do not bait attacks, they zoom to this ladder.
If you don't look behind you, they're not real. No, you're not supposed to look right at
The number of people that I have seen lose runs to this Manticore Alley, too numerous to count truly at this point. But the way that I've learned to deal with it, morethna's learned to deal with it, I'm not sure how you chose to go through this section. There are multiple techniques, but baiting attacks is very important, otherwise they will pursue. One other thing coming up, we have a very cool skip that we're going to see from morethna that is only possible, to my knowledge, with 2 weapons in the game, one of them being the weapon that we have. It is a glaive skip. I'll let you watch. Beautiful. I just want to highlight what that skip is, okay? If you do not do that skip, there is a whole section that you have to drop down with multiple enemies. There's decay, like clouds that you're dealing
manticore.
With. Yes. Yep. Baby manticore at the bottom. Also, there is the place that you have to drop. Most runners do drop because we don't have this weapon to use. There is one tiny area that if you fall into this section, it has a slightly lower elevation than the surrounding area, and you will die. It does not matter of your capacity.
I didn't know that.
I have seen people lose runs there. I tested it extensively once I saw it occurred, and it's just this slight dip in like 2 bricks. It's almost ridiculous that it can happen. But
Elden Ring, they got further inspired.
Yep, exactly. No, honestly, that's what it feels like. Yeah. And so morethna just completely avoids that concern.
That's great. I did not know that. Thank goodness. I would have, ignorance is bliss, they say. And
it's one of those things that, unfortunately, you don't learn until it happens. So there's just a lot of trial and error with these runs. And that's why I think an important thing, if you're interested in getting into no-hit runs, continuing runs after you take your first hits is very important, because you will learn something on almost every single run, especially with a game like this where it hasn't been run super extensively. It's not like, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, all the older Souls games that have been ran like thousands of times at this point. This is a more novel run, and so a lot of it comes with trial and error and just testing. We got some splooshers.
The splushers return. Maybe the final splushers, I believe. By splushers.
They might be, because then it's just some sprinkled in alchemists and other scary enemies coming up.
Ooh, and there is actually a scary enemy coming up as well, and it's really important because we touched on this in the, or we talked about it, we were going to talk about it. Oh no, that's right, there's this mini section before. I'll hold off on this because there's an important interaction that's going to take place. But the next enemy we're worried about is one we did talk about for sure, which is a particular butterfly There's a certain butterfly that, again, doesn't seem like it's much of anything.
Yeah,
Watch.
this butterfly is so silly.
This is this is very specific, but just watch how this is handled. After we take care of this this wacky alchemist pokey
I like
lad.
how he does this actually a lot.
Yeah.
So he
Bait him
baits
out.
this attack and then he runs around.
And that's
There it is.
Boom. Did you miss it? All right. That it doesn't look like much, but if you don't cut in like that and you're not aware the butterfly's there,
Yep.
gravity will take you, and it's over.
Like, as you're used to that, like, you'll know I'm not gonna die, but it's still scary every time. Like, I still, whenever I would go through there, I would still have little heart flutters because it freaked me out.
Yeah.
But another thing you need to pay attention to actually is you can fall through elevators in this game. I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but I think I was probably doing something silly. I was probably spinning around or like rolling in the elevator because that's what I do. I can't sit still during runs.
I'm the same way.
You can clip through elevators and fall. So another thing that you just need
I've
to
never
be
seen
mindful
it,
of.
but in the final elevator,
I've done it.
I've seen these games. As much as we praise these games, they're not perfect. As much as we want, they got charm, but on a hitless run, sometimes you can get mad at that. But when it comes to the enjoyment of these games, again, it's one of those things that you have knowledge about. Speaking of knowledge, we bring down that enemy to lure him away from the lever that he's guarding. We don't actually want to fight him. We just want to get him away from that spot.
I like this path so much better.
Yeah, this is the path that I took. Yeah, it's pretty clean. And we're going to employ a clean idea too. One of the only times we use, I believe we're going to be taking, we're going to be using the cat dust. It's an item in the game that sort of softens your detection radius, essentially, to perform a really weird maneuver to run past the first enemy, the second, hide in the corner. The jester gets confused or only looks at the carcasses nearby because the puppets and the carcasses don't like each other. Bit of a feud going on. Pull the lever, bone out, reset the area, and we're good to go.
Gorgeous.
Yep.
Love to see it.
Efficient too, tying with the cutscene. Moretna's running right now, running. So it makes sense that we're still keeping that speed because, again, the typical runs of this game are long. That's another difficult aspect of this. Sometimes some runs can be done in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and this one's being done in 2.5 already, which is phenomenal. But the average is a lot higher, typically, like 3 to 4 hours. So it's a tough run.
It's long. It truly is a long run, and there's nothing in my mind that's like super free. You need to know what you're doing for pretty much every boss. If you compare it to something like Elden Ring, there's a lot of tools at your disposal where you can one-shot or have really, really nice scripts for every boss that don't even require like parries half the time. This section's very scary. There is a very specific line that you need to take to this ladder. I know it looks like he's just running, but I swear it is precise because there are a lot of enemies that are falling down around him, and then that alchemist has a ranged attack. It's so silly.
Yeah, there's the tentacle head dudes that are popping out of the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's. We're going to throw a cluster at this dude to knock him down to get further ahead. We're nearing the midway point of the tower. Just one final major running sign. Watch out for the butterfly. They're evil. Watch out for the disruption. It's evil. Watch out for the gravity. It's evil. If it's not obvious, this place is just a menace. This is a evil area.
This is a great choice that he just made.
I like this choice too. Yeah.
Those alchemists have a very, very, very quick attack. It's interesting. I hadn't seen it until like I got a really low PB, and I would get to this part hitless, and I would start seeing it more and more frequently whenever I got here hitless. I'm like, what is this attack suddenly? So that was a great choice, breaking him into that stagger, because those are just they're very, very spooky enemies.
And Moretna's actually looking in with the camera. Again, another one-off elite enemy, and that elite enemy is ridiculously strong. He's so wild, and it's this game is just cool. This game is just cool. You mentioned it. We could just. Go ahead. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Speaking of cool, it really doesn't get much cooler than the boss we're about to see.
Probably the fan favorite.
I would say this is definitely probably the fan favorite in general. Yeah. If you were to poll 100 people, this is probably like a 95%er for this boss fight.
It's going to be on many lists because this is it's flashy. It's, dare I say, electric.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
that's a good way to put it. No,
that was
that's
really
it.
easy. I'm sorry.
I
I'm
was right
sorry.
there.
It was so
no,
easy.
the
I had
low-hanging
to.
fruit.
Oh my goodness.
Why don't you go hang out with the
gracious.
golden tree for a while, Banjo, picking that fruit?
Oh, actually, believe it or not, I ran a Q build on my first playthrough.
Oh,
so
did you
actually,
really?
yeah,
That's so
I was like, this
silly.
is a silly thing. I'm gonna do this.
That's funny.
I was like, this is really funny. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, not the greatest, but it was silly because I had
So-
like, yeah.
What I encourage chat to do, watch all that is happening. Please watch all that is happening, all that morethna is juggling in this boss fight, all the throwables, the timing between throwables and attacks. I just encourage you to just appreciate what is happening in such a short amount of time, because there
Yeah,
is a
for
lot
this-
of things being juggled.
Here we go, Laxasia, the lightning lady herself. Here we go. We're gonna start off
Lightning
with
McQueen? Oh, no.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close. We're gonna be tossing tons of throwables, lots of damage, charge attack, nice parry, delayed timing, very tricky. She has some different follow-ups. Oh, I hate that. Oh, it's a double. I hate that attack.
Oh, that was
very
gorgeous.
nicely done. Look
Oh,
at the
that was
damage.
gorgeous.
Yeah, that attack is really tricky. All right,
As
here we
she's
go.
going into
This,
her stagger,
all right,
she
I'm
has
gonna,
a
I'm gonna,
hitbox.
yeah, here we go. I'm done talking.
Oh,
Absolutely textbook.
it was flawless.
Flawless.
It was flawless.
Victory.
That
Unbelievable.
So
Amazing.
an important thing to
Amazing.
point out
Agreed.
with this, something that I get a lot with this game is people often ask, are you just holding block? And is it just automatically deflecting those
Yeah.
lightning bolts? It looks like your character is. With his character, it's a little bit more obvious because he's using that weapon art that's spinning him forward, or sorry, the fable art that's spinning his character forward. So you can see every single one of those lightning bolts was a perfect parry. It looks so easy from him. It is so difficult, especially under pressure. Imagine being here. You know, he's almost 215 into the run, nearly flawless at this point. Like, imagine the nerves. It's just, oh my gosh.
That attack is, again, I would probably use the words, I've used it a couple times, infamous, because it is RNG slightly in terms of how the lightning is positioned. That it's not always the same. Some people like to use sound cues for the timing of her final super duper
Yes.
slam.
Yep.
It is an important attack to have to deal with because it happens every single time at the start of phase 2. Some people do it utilize it for damage. Some people, roll through or avoid things. But regardless, it is if you know that fight, that phase 2 is maybe the hardest in the whole game, besides
Yes.
maybe the final
The phase
super
2
duper
is so
true.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it's again, you use the absolutely correct term, flawless execution on that.
I'd
Yeah,
be
the-
curious to ask him. Oh, so sorry, Helix. Go ahead.
The more you
Yes.
the more you explain it, the more impressed I am by it. That's got to be worth a donation, right, chat? Remember, Twitch
think so.
charity tool where the sub button normally is now donate. So you can donate right now to the American Heart Association. Sorry, please continue. Again, your commentary has been amazing.
Thank you. We
well,
just
thank you.
love the game a whole bunch.
Yeah,
he's playing the game so well that
Yeah,
we just get
it's
to be.
honestly, yeah. Like when it comes to how this is again being run and what we're seeing here, both by the organizers and by morethna and my fellow commentator Bree, it's been super fun to do this. And so yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
been great.
it's a great time. Yeah, and again, morethna's making his way through the final running
We got the
section. This is the
gunner.
final. Yeah, so this is another evil section. So many runs have died to these two. Like this is a cool little technique right here. I like this
Yep.
little idea. Whoop. Believe it or not, the main character is faster than speeding bullets. We don't know how, but it's just his walk cycle. He's able to dodge bullets entirely. It's very nice because those two end so many runs. It's tricky.
There is a lot of labbing that has been done in this entire final section. There are just numerous enemies. If morethna chooses to dispatch of things the way that I think he will, he typically kills most of the enemies, which is definitely not the wrong choice because it's so precise with understanding pathing, what can go wrong, where you have to really pay attention to. Like I said earlier, some games have a nice final section where it's not super heart rate inducing. This game is not like that. There is constant bombardment from the environment, from enemies, from bosses, and you really earn this run when you get it.
Yeah, and you mentioned it as well, that what's cool about the community around Hitless is you don't have to do it alone. Right, if you're wondering, like, whether it's the Discord or it's guides online or people that have finished runs or just particular like low damage boss fights, or like you have a question about something, you want to reach out to a streamer, you know, that kind of thing. What's great about, the reason why I love Hitless so much is that while, you know, we're all working hard on our own individual adventures, the collective push, the community rallying, the camaraderie that we all employ to win, because it's all about, you know, shared victory in a way. We all want to destroy the game. It's us versus the game, right? And so if we share knowledge, we help each other to all succeed, and it's such an amazing element of Hitless in the Hitless community.
I agree with you entirely. I've done many no-hit runs at this point, and I to this day feel that Lies of P was the most rewarding, not because of like my own journey, but getting to watch and help and learn from others. That was, I think, probably the coolest thing for me, was how connected I felt to everyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good way to put it too. I'm very proud of this run as well. I think there's accomplishing it, not just for its challenge, but for what it asks of you as a runner, both again with yourself and the community. I think it's wonderful. I highly encourage everyone to look into it and try it for themselves, because not just because it's cool, but I think it's a great starting point as well, because you can start with any game. It doesn't have to be Lies of P. It doesn't have to be Dark Souls 1. It could be your favorite. It could be your least favorite. It could be a random one. It doesn't have to be any like officially sanctioned Hitless game.
It doesn't have to be a Souls-like. Like there are tons of variety games that are outside the RPG genre even that are no-hit runs. And as Banjo even said, you can make your own challenges. It doesn't have to be a Team Hitless official game. There's just a lot that you can do if you just put a little bit of thought into what is a personal challenge that I would like to achieve. And just going back to Team Hitless, it just fosters an environment where you get to share that challenge and that achievement with like-minded individuals, which is great.
And many people have come together on this this is the final the actual final section. This little final 3 enemies. It doesn't seem like much, but it's
horrible.
It's horrifying.
It's terrifying. This section has caused me sleepless nights prior to getting this
watch
run.
those walls. I've seen people bonk the wall by accident, and then and then it's over, and then it's like, and that's it. There's no more enemies. This is the end. We are at the finale. Yeah, and
we are at the pinnacle of the aisle. We have I go back to the end of this run is not free. You work towards it, you work for it, and Manus, the final fight here.
Simon Manus, and downright devious dude.
This is diabolical. This fight is diabolical. What it all throws at you, from projectile attacks, from AoE attacks that take up space, that occupy space that you need to go away from the timings of his swings. This is challenging.
Show me everything you have.
The amount of times I heard that in practice. Oh my goodness. Here we go.
Seeing some parries.
There's so many weird delays, so many strange combos, but look at the damage. We mention it all the time.
Gross.
I don't even want to deal with phase 1, okay? Phase 2, there's so much that, pretty okay opener a little bit. Not the worst.
Yeah, it's okay.
Evil follow-up, very nice. Okay, good dodges. We're avoiding those attacks, those deal damage. We're going with another long-range attack. This is based on your position. The closer you are, the faster it starts. The further away you are, the more it's delayed. He's going with another. He's doing the extra follow-up. This is the Fury attack follow-up to outspace it. We're going in. He pulls it back. That actually has a hitbox on. You have to be careful. What do we get next? The classic. Okay. Follow up.
There's the hand.
Very nice.
Great dodge. Great dodge. Those are scary.
I had forgotten
attacks.
about that third hand. Holy.
Just when you think he's done with an attack, he whips out another follow-up. That is the
We're
name
building
of the game.
stagger. Yep. He's summoning his giant hand. You have to be careful of this. He's going to get a mini stagger. I think he's going to back away from the giant hand. Not that hand. That's a big. That's the giant hand.
Yep. So that's the space-occupying attack that I was speaking of. We got more projectiles. Those do count as hits. This wave is mean. The waves are mean. The hitbox, the timing, it's awkward. It's mean. morethna not letting it bother him.
Avoiding the final slab. I think that is one big bad bro.
Amazing. Amazing. Can we get some applause in the chat?
GG. That is that final fight. Oh my, that rivals like Luxasia, honestly, like on low damage,
really
like
does.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it's extremely difficult because the RNG, I don't know if there's necessarily an automatic frame trap on it, but there may be potential frame trap opportunities. But even if they're not, the precision that happens with the projectiles and the multiple projectiles and his different combos and
understanding where you should be relative to even the boss walls, right?
Yes,
like it all comes back to tying this all together. Oftentimes, it's not just the boss moves that you need to get used to. It's relative to where you are in a boss room with that fight. So there's so much that goes into these types of runs. I just love Liza P because it does such a good job of exemplifying the difficulty that goes into learning no hit.
And we're done, right? This is it. This is the
surely we're done.
We're done, right? So we're smoked up here. Looks like morethna wants to do a final little like fireworks show. I like it a lot. Very cinema again. I'm liking the camera work. I'm liking the particle effects. Looks really nice. And the drip. Don't forget the drip. We've been looking quite spicy for the back half of this run, but we're done, right? We're just gonna talk to our dad, and then we're just gonna
super easy peasy. morethna's gonna go run his marathon after this because he has his warm up done on his treadmill. So
he's all right. His heart rate's in the right spot. You can just like you can just start running officially. Very good.
Real quick, chat.
Not quite yet. Oh.
We unlocked the bonus boss, right? We hit this goal really, really early. So everyone, I want to see some hype in chat. We are about to face the bonus boss. I think the name was already hinted. Can I even say that? Is that a pun? It's just to say that? I can't even right now. But yeah,
you're welcome to pun. This is a pun allowed zone, my friend.
I'm super excited. So yeah, let's get some hype in chat.
Yes, the true final boss in Bloodborne fashion.
He deserves it.
We're not quite done. Yes. Give me your heart, son. All right, Margit.
He chose the right option. Let's go.
He did. That's true. The nameless puppet. Nice opener. I believe it's maybe even scripted. I'm not entirely sure, but this damage is off the charts. We're not even gonna see phase one. Bada bing.
All I can do is laugh.
Boom. I know. The design, the mechanic, everything's so cool. This fight's super sick too, but we don't deal with it. Cluster grenades, more throwables, shot put. Okay, interruption.
And we will get a stagger.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Nice repose. Now I think he's gonna go for. He's got. I think. Yeah.
He sure is. Oh, so difficult.
Shoot.
Yes.
Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a very, very tough parry. Very tough dodge. Whether you choose to dodge or parry, it's timing based. For me personally, I find it basically timing based, and it's very awkward.
It is not an easy a fight whatsoever. Whether you're doing it normally, whether you're doing a hitless run, whether you're doing it super low damage, that fight is so. It's cool. It's just more. Again, it's just cool on cool.
This is an optional boss fight, so this is an incentive based boss fight. If we were talking any percent, would have been done at Manus. So we are getting a really, really cool opportunity to see more work that morethna has put into mastering this game, and I truly want to emphasize that particular transformation that Nameless Puppet does. It's mean. It's difficult.
Yeah, that's a good point because, and you mentioned it extremely briefly, but it deserves even more attention for sure because I'm glad you brought it up, was that if you are doing this run and you don't want to fight this final true boss, you need to make the right decision. If you make the wrong decision, then you are going to cry, because if you don't know the fight or you're not ready to fight him, it's
the amount of
GG.
stress that you'd have if you accidentally chose that, and that would technically like end your run. Theoretically, if you made that choice, you had done the run, but you accidentally chose Nameless, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm done." Like like you went into the boss fight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
You can at the Stargazer. So if you interact with it, you can say, "Oh, I'm not. Never mind." But
Yes.
because you can't bone out of a boss fight, it's you're stuck with your choice. And so we're gonna be choosing to fight him one more time here. Expertly done. Phase the damage. This is level 1 or non-level. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. That's why these games are so sick, because you can just push it to the limit.
The tools that they give you, as long as you know how to use them.
Yeah.
We're seeing, all of these collective items really come to culmination and really meet the peak of what they're capable of.
Yes, absolutely. He charged his yellow charge attack, which was like, oh my goodness.
So scary.
Here we go.
Here we go.
This darn Nameless, honestly, I've never liked Nameless, if I'm gonna be honest with you.
Who is this guy anyways?
Nameless is honestly, like, I'm choosing Bed of Chaos. Honestly, that's, I don't know about you guys out there, but I'm honestly not a fan. Chat would agree. At this point in time, Nameless, it's a tough fight. It's extremely, extremely evil.
It is. It is.
Also, we have a bunch of
you're-
extras, I see. Cool. Okay, we have more backups. Very good. Very good.
Yes, I believe he did buy quite a few extra throwables when he went to Malum District for the last time.
Yeah.
And we're also doing this, something we need to remind ourselves of. There is fatigue related to these runs. Like, think
Absolutely.
of everything that we've had to watch morethna prepare for and think about and do in every boss encounter, using every, certain amount of Fable Catalyst, certain amount of every throwables. Like, there's so much calculating that is occurring. It's fatiguing. It's draining. I take the best sleep. Let's go!
And
Oh,
no! This dart. The damage is right there.
full responsibility for that. I'm so excited.
I see, again, when in the grand scheme, I'm making a YouTube video. Why the Bed of Chaos is better than Nameless Puppet. You're gonna see. I'm telling you, hundreds of millions of views. You're gonna see it. This darn boss. We're gonna get some more consumables, more throwables. It's not, and again, the phase 2 there is extremely difficult.
Yes,
in all regards, because
it's ridiculous.
He's just the audio, the design, the everything is like so just menacing. And so when it comes to the actual move set on top of that, it is very, very, very difficult. But we're gonna get some more consumables here. We're gonna get some more throwables, and we're going to take them down once and for all.
I haven't done this strat myself, but I am curious if that could have been a damage roll. Almost. Like, it almost fell into the category of, I wonder if a higher damage roll had occurred, if he would have been dead.
That's fair. That's actually a very good point, because it's possible that, and I like that point a lot, because it's possible that on every single instance of the attacks being done physically like that, and the throws too.
Yep.
It's not just like one, like it just decides the beginning of the fight. It's like if collectively every time the game just decides low damage,
Exactly,
and it adds up.
Can happen.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely possible for sure.
100%. Yeah.
We're gonna grab more Fable. We're gonna talk to Paul and Dina, fellow cool guy.
Catalyst.
Lots of cat. Just buy it all. I like it. Stocking up. Paul and Dina would rival the Merchant as well. Merchant probably has an edge in terms of the ergo stock, but Paul and Dina, he's nothing to scoff at.
He certainly is not. And I did bring up, the mental fatigue that a lot of us feel during these runs, but I need to also remind myself that morethna's also been walking on a treadmill for the last, I don't know, what has it been, an hour at least?
And I'm exhausted for him.
I'm sitting in this chair and I'm exhausted. So Like, let's just.
That is, you know what? That's a fair point as well. That's like the amount of. There's so much going on, and it's an amazing testament to morethna's skills at this game and IRL as well.
I wasn't joking. I've tried to play games while walking/running on my treadmill, and the most that I can do is playing like Animal Crossing. Okay, like I am not hitting a game.
Yeah, I'm sticking with my Cheetos. Here we go. Very nice. It's very interesting that the stagger always occurs at the right time. I like that a lot.
Yep.
Very labbed out, as we've discussed. Nice damage. Nice damage. Here we go. Very good. Do we get a nicer roll?
Nope.
Damage is right there.
Unfortunately, it's right there.
It's right there. Why can't you just give it to us, please?
The tiniest little.
It's one
sliver of
little.
health.
It's
I
right
think
there.
It almost might come down to, which I don't think there is time, but it almost would come down to the last Fable slot being filled, essentially, right? Like, if you look at his Fable bars, I believe he is missing one maybe right at the end there, and I wonder if, like, I'm not saying he has the time to do that, but that just goes to show how, like, technically precise the damage mechanisms can be in this game. And I think, you know, I don't want to say that it's a good thing that this happened, but it just goes to show the precision required. It's a good example.
I think that's very well said. You know, when it comes to any hitless run or any hitless endeavor, we prepare us. We hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right? And when it comes to these kinds of encounters, whether it's a super duper ultra final true boss or you're just running by one single puppet at the beginning of the game, sometimes things can go wrong, but this time they will not. Here we go. Oh! Yeah!
Yes!
GG!
Let's go! We take those throwables!
GG! Well done, morethna.
Well fought. Thank you for being able to maintain the mental fortitude to get through that after a few moments of frustration. And
yeah, for sure.
For offering us such just an incredible run. Absolutely stupendous. I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream when I first introduced myself, but to watch this run evolve, and we talked about this just recently about how most runners are looking at 3 to 4 hours depending on your route, your comfort with the game, etc., how much you need to take breaks because of nerves, and we're seeing that time just obliterated without leveling. Doing all ergo bosses.
All the bosses on a treadmill, essentially mulligan hitless, right? Like the live, you know, it's thousands and thousands of people watching.
You know, I think that's underappreciated.
Absolutely,
the nerves, you know, compounded by having many people watching. We're all human, and at least I know I feel that way in competitive or, you know, showcase environments. So,
yeah, this was
an
absolutely incredible display of skill, showcasing this game to the utmost. It's a wonderful game in general, and again, I hope everyone will check it out in any context.
Really, yes.
It's an amazing experience.
Yeah,
any context, really.
That was absolutely fantastic. By the way, as we were finishing that up, we have reached $2,000 raised for the American Heart Association.
Let's go.
Let's go.
But yes, an absolutely incredible run. morethna, if you're unmuted, is there anything you'd like to say? Any shout-outs?
Oh, that one run at the end was just terrifying. Actually, Brie mentioned it. I lowered 3 times on this boss fight with the last spin of the Fable attack.
Nice call.
I had this in practice like 1 time, and I adjusted my strat the throwing cells at the end after the second mini stagger, and after that he never survived after the Fable attack. So that's why I was curious why he is not dead at the end. But we did it. The rest of the run
You
was
did
actually deathless.
True.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
well
was.
done.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought you did a phenomenal job. I think it was an absolutely incredible 2:36:48. Look at that speed.
I could really only dream of pulling off a run that quickly. Really, truly. It's incredible.
And to be fair, I took many safety stargazers and played or did really slow in the leveling part for the P organs. So it could have been a lot faster.
I know you were just doing the P organ levels for us, though, so we could appreciate what you were doing. I have taken
Yes.
some notes, but I'm like, what if I'm wrong? But we know it was for our benefit, surely.
Yes, thank you for taking the time to do all that, and again for showcasing so many of your skills. And like we mentioned before, you and Bree and everyone else are inspirations to myself and everyone out there. So thank you for doing this today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. At least actually for this event. It was really fun, and the event has even started, or it's the first one of the day. So come up.
We're just getting started. Let's go, chat.
Lots to come.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Where can people find you on Twitch, morethna?
What did you say?
Where can they find you on Twitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/morethna, and I'm streaming a lot of Lies of P content. In the future as well, I will try to do many different kinds of challenge run in this game, like weapon relay, which is also a great or a good way to play the game because you can separate the weapons. I think you didn't mention it at all this whole run, that you can split the weapons into parts and combine them with different weapons. And this is going to be fun for sure.
Yes. Yep. It's a very fun mechanic that it gives you a lot of freedom. It allows you to really tailor to your play style, depending on the move sets of one weapon. You're like, hey, I really like that attack. And then you can change the blade, etc. It's a really cool mechanic in this game.
Thank you, Bree and Banjo as well. Just all three of you honestly combined to make this such an incredible run. Yeah, it was a great time. It seems like chat agreed. I would like to thank Smoker Spectre, Rogue Jelly, Bot Bandy, and Newtbag for $50 donations each. Thank you so much. We are going to move on shortly, but before we do so, really quick, I just want to remind everybody that AGDQ 2025 will be live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from January 5th through 12th. Registration and hotel booking are now open, so you can visit gamesdonequick.com and check the AGDQ 2025 important dates section to learn more. Runner and volunteer submissions are open until October 6th. That is this Sunday. So if you want to run, if you want to volunteer, you got to get those submissions in this weekend. Anything you want to say, Deadeyeee, before we take a quick break?
Yeah, did the commentators do their shouts? Sorry, I was taking care of my dog.
Yeah, I mean, if you two have anything to say quickly, go for it.
Yeah, Bree or Banjo, any last minute shoutouts?
Sure. Just very briefly, you guys can find me at twitch.tv/banjotheuncle. But more importantly, thank you to GDQ for inviting me on. Thank you to Team Hitless again for all that you do and pushing us forward. And thank you to Bree and morethna. Like I said, my run would not have been possible without their guides, without their YouTube videos, without their expertise in this game. So I owe a lot to them for allowing me to stand on the shoulders of giants. So thank you for everything, for everyone here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Banjo, and thank you, morethna, and thank you both Team Hitless and GDQ as well for putting out an amazing event. I myself am really looking forward to not only today, but the rest of the weekend. The lineup is so cool, and getting to involve so many incredible commentators, creators, runners, just seeing the showcase of what can really be done when you push yourself to the limits of not only taking on one challenge with Hitless, but also adding the speed aspect. Like the collision of the two spheres is very cool. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here and for commentating. The commentary was absolutely top notch. I couldn't have asked for a better talent. So shout out to both of you. So chat, we are about to go into the second game. I feel like we've been here for hours. It's been so entertaining. But we are going to hop into Elden Ring DLC Showcase No Hit. That's right. We are showing off 2.5 hours worth of DLC. And if you haven't seen the Elden Ring DLC, these are some of the hardest bosses that have been released. So honestly, it's going to be such a treat. Like I said, we are going to go into a wellness break. So if you want to get some water, use the bathroom, stretch, anything like that, now is your time. And like I said, we will be back very shortly. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone who has donated so far. The support has been just unreal. We really appreciate it.